are witnessing one of the most extraordinary scenes I have ever seen.
Hop on board the world's largest safari vehicle as we track down Africa's most iconic animals on our daily live shows.
This is crazy.
Captivating characters, breathtaking beauty, and daily drama.
Artwork, $1 million card. How insane is that animal?
Only on Wild Earth. This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Jumbo everyone, it's another lovely afternoon and we are here in the Masai Mara, the Mara Triangle, and welcome to your afternoon live safari. Jumbo everyone, welcome once again. We are in the Masai Mara on this afternoon live safari, and we're here with one lone lioness of the Olololo pride. Looks like she has eaten more than she can take, so she's fast asleep. Yes, my name is Isaac, and on camera I have Bungay. Today, my mission is to look for Romy, our only leopard down at the marsh, and also to look for Bahati later on maybe. And to start with, we're over here with our lioness. Remember, this is a live safari. Question and comments are very welcome. Send them to #WildEarth. Send in your kids' question at wildearth.tv. And also at FC. Weather for this Mara this afternoon is around 27 degrees Celsius. Yes, and it's a wonderful afternoon we have here. I have one of the Olololo lionesses. Looks like she has eaten a lot, and she has decided to come and rest, in between those rocks. Remember, those rocks retain heat a little bit longer after the sun has gone down, and already it looks like we might have some rain, and so already I think she loves the heat in those rocks. All those flies are attracted by the smell of blood. Of course, they can feed on that, and that's why, they're full on her. They don't, bother her at all. And when she feels ready, she's going to clean herself. But right now, I think sleep has taken, better side of her at the moment. Is it Apti? Very beautiful mountains in the background. Yes, thank you. These are part of the Olololo escarpment. It's called Olololo Syria escarpment, and this is the edge of the Mara Triangle, and this is also the boundary for these pride of lions. So this is where they reach. This little forest you see here is called Sanguriai, and it forms a very important area for elephants in our area to give birth, and also lions. Okay, I'm gonna let one of my other colleagues introduce himself.
Jumbo, and a warm welcome to you in the Masai Mara of Kenya. We have a very lazy lion here, Olalashe. It's just not far from where Isaac is, and actually I can see it's a lazy afternoon for all this lion. My name is Tim, and behind camera we have Big James. So welcome. This afternoon it's very, very chilly. You can see the breeze, the grass, how it's being blown by the wind. It's about 26 degrees Celsius, about 79 degrees Fahrenheit. A peaceful afternoon. I just wonder where these lions were, because in the morning we drove past this area, but at night we had a lot of commotion. These lions had a big roar, and I think 5 or 4 of the 6 pack that roam the Musiara Marsh happened to have come this side, and I think they pushed these lions towards just close to the edge of the escarpment and where our camp is located. So Olalashe was mating with 1 or 2 of the Olololo pride yesterday and the day before. It's been happening for about 7 days, I suppose. Normally it will take about 4 days, but I think this has gone way than we always expect or what we always see lions mating. Very nice landscape over there. Well, Isaac mentioned Chris, thank you so much for your question. This lion, Olalashe, came and conquered over the Owino pride. So he was a dominant male for the Owino pride. So, because we've seen a lot of dynamics in lions.
Right, so as you can see, we sometimes have a few little technical difficulties out here in the bush. We're at the moment trying to follow up on a whole bunch of alarm calls here in Djuma to see what we can find. There's a smell of something dead, so I'm hoping maybe it's a leopard with a kill in this area. Anyway, my name is Tristan. On camera I have got Morgan this afternoon. And like I say, there's been alarm calls throughout the day of francolins, squirrels, bushbuck, and that generally indicates that there is a big predator around, because bushbuck won't really alarm call for an owl or something like that. They really only alarm call for things like leopard and lion. And the fact that there's something that smells like it's dead is always a good indication that maybe there is something there. It could just be a hyena that maybe the bushbuck saw through the thicket and just saw a bit of spotted coat and just let out a bark. So we don't know. We're just busy trying to see. It's right up against the lodge, so I'm just checking the drainage line that runs away from it in case whatever it is has moved a little bit and come up this area for water. But so far no sign of anything. I was hoping that we would have potentially found at least a track to work with. We've walked quite a lot of the drainage line already, because often trying to find these things, being on foot is easier, because you can hear flies, you can smell things, you can hear sounds like a little francolin alarm calling, much better than over the engine. And generally in the heat like we're having this afternoon, when you are on foot trying to track down an animal, when you can smell something like that, is that you're walking so quietly that if you do it carefully, often you can get yourself to a point where the animal doesn't even know that you're there, and you can kind of spot it before it sees you, and then you just come out and go and fetch the car. So I'm hoping that we'll have some success. It's going to be a bit tricky. It's not an easy area to negotiate, but we'll see how it goes. The best we can do is try.
Good afternoon to all our viewers, and welcome to an extremely hot afternoon on Anbion Ngala. And we've just come across some small group of giraffe standing in the half shade provided by some silver cluster leaves. Now, myself, I'm Yapi, and behind the camera we have Owen. And we decided to come and explore the southern side of the reserve this afternoon, because this time of the year there's a lot of new trees blooming flowering and blooming at the moment, and there is some animals that turns out to be a little bit tricky to find in the rest of the reserve. And because of that, we've come to the south. And the giraffes at the moment have shifted their movements from the dry riverbeds, which had most of the food at the end of the dry season, And they come to feed on the new growth down here. Oh. And you can see she is hardly even stopping. Actually, I can't even see if it's a he or she. Looks like a she.
Welcome back to the Mara, and sorry for the bad reception. This is Olashe, as I was going through the question. This is Olashe. Olashe was the dominant male for the Owinos. He still goes back and forth, but I've seen him walking around 3 territories where he's going through Olololo Pride, the River Pride, and back to the Owinos. Now, because of these other males that came into Mara Triangle, I'm yet to see if he's going to still remain with most of the prides or he's going to be ousted out. So it seems like the mating is over because I can't see any of the lionesses close to him. And I'm sure he's just within where those lionesses are because they might have eaten. But I think he didn't get enough. So we've seen him walking around with one of the youngsters from the Owinos, whose father was Kipuli. So the young male that always associates himself with Olashe is not his son. He's forming a coalition with him because that young lion, his mother are from the Owino Pride and the father is called Kipuli. So Kipuli is no longer seen. We haven't seen him for a very long time. So these two wander off in those 3 lion pride territories. It's going to be a nice interaction whenever we get to see these lions coming in, because there's a lot of females, lots of lionesses. So we have about 17 in the Lolo Pride, but we've seen most of them have break up into 2s and 3s. The dominant one now in the River Pride, I think she was mating yesterday with one of the lions from the Marsh Pride. So we're yet to see what's going to happen around here.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Tswalu Kalahari. Nice, beautiful, warm, overcast day we are having today. And what a fantastic scene we're starting off to this afternoon's drive with. This was 2 female ostrich. You can see it is quite hot. You'll see that the beaks are slightly open, allowing them to draw more air in, and obviously evaporation. Very good afternoon. My name is Carl. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Behind camera is David. Good afternoon. Welcome. Nice ostrich over here. We are going to go out west, so we're starting to hit the dunes, going out west, and we go over these parallel dunes, and we are just hoping to scratch or unearth anything that we could possibly find. And over the first dune, we've already struck gold. How amazing is that? See, the vegetation is slightly different to what we had this morning. You can see it's a bit more shrubby, a bit more shorter here. Neva, how many eggs would an ostrich lay? She would lay every 2 days. She would lay an egg. And then from there, that should lay, I think it's close on to 12, 15 eggs should lay within a communal clutch. But it takes her 48 hours to produce an egg. And sometimes you can have more eggs within a nest site because they do form these communal den sites. Listen to me. It's the heat today. These communal egg sites where you could have up to 30, 40 eggs within a site itself. But the more dominant female will be in the middle, obviously where it's safest. And she'll obviously be very protective over the spot with her eggs. But quite a remarkable thing to lay an egg that is about 1.2 kilograms of weight. It's quite an amazing achievement. And then 48 hours to produce one egg. And that's why you always see when ostrich hatch, you'll always see ostrich from very small and then suddenly the size will increase. And that's the 2.5 day, obviously roughly, interval on how she'll lay it. Fantastic skyline we're having. All these clouds drifting over from Namibia and Botswana, which is north and northwest of us, all that moisture up into the atmosphere and is now just hanging above our heads. It's quite remarkable. The amount of water that is sitting up here now is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of liters, thousands of liters, sitting and just hanging above us. It's quite remarkable. Look at that. So these hotter days coming to some, obviously evaporation happens north of us, enters the upper layers of the atmosphere and then drifts north. We're going to send you off drifting somewhere else and we'll see you shortly.
Well, I had to leave my lioness because she was falling asleep and it was making me a little bit sleepy. And I decided to start my journey towards the marsh. And it looks like I have a very beautiful herd of elephants right in front of me here. I'm gonna reveal them to you quite soon. And Bunge is just about to do that for you. Here they are. It's a beautiful small herd spread out, along these beautiful plains of Kichwa. Look at that. They're just coming into your view in a second. And there they are. As you can see, I think the weatherman predictions didn't work out today. He said precipitation about 7%, but already we have rain. I can't blame him. He's been very accurate in the last few weeks. Still, it is beautiful. You can still see that we have patches of clearing where there's beautiful sunlight. Here are some elephants, and note that there is a female without tusks to the right. It's something that we should note that in the current years or in the past about 25 years, elephants learned that they were being poached and hunted because of their tusks, and so certain families started not growing tusks, and it is evident in some herds. Of course, majority of them have got tusks, as you can see here. And again, the reason they are here, definitely it's for a specific type of grass or shrub or bush. That's why they're here, all spread out. This herd doesn't have very many lily fans like the one we saw yesterday, but it does have a lot of middle-aged, about 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old. So it has gone through that stage of lily fans to small elephants. Remember, this is an animal that is the largest in the land, and we have a very healthy population of them here, and they're still thriving and doing very, very well. Continue talking to us on #WildEarth. Questions and comments are very, very welcome. There are some that are so small. The last. Looks like everybody is very relaxed here. Everybody is enjoying the early afternoon snack out in the plains. The wildebeest are gone, so there's no noise. We normally notice that when the wildebeest are here, most elephants will leave the plains. They don't like the noise of the wildebeest. Yeah, that little elephant has learned how to use its trunk. They start, starting to use it around the age of about 2 months onwards. They'll start flexing it and using it. And looks like this guy has started learning how to use it.
Always enjoyable watching elephants, the young calves as they fiddle with their long and small trunks. Now back here we have a very nice looking landscape, and overlooking over there there's a big storm that is raining over towards the Serengeti side. Actually, those mountains there are called the Kuka, and if you look carefully, they look like someone sleeping. Someone sleeping. If you look closely on the side of the right of the screen, you can almost see that it almost looks like a head, and then the chest, and then the legs. I like calling it the sleeping warrior. It's called Denise, what a beautiful scene indeed. That hill is actually over towards the border of Masai Mara and Tanzania. If you look carefully, you can almost see like it's someone sleeping facing upwards, the head towards the left, and then the chest, and then the legs. I like calling it the sleeping warrior, or it's called Kuka. So that borders Kenya and Tanzania. So the rain falling on that side is actually what we call the conventional rainfall. It's being pushed over from Lake Victoria. So our Mara River, which many of you have seen wildebeest, zebras, and other animals crossing over the Mara River, it always flows all the way down to the Lake Victoria, where our conventional rainfall that falls into the Masai Mara comes from the Lake Victoria. So it's very, very interesting to know that most of this comes from Lake Victoria. I can see the light patch on the middle of the screen where it's shiny. What a beautiful landscape there. Super quiet at the moment, so it's a good weather to actually find cats. So Isaac's mission is to find leopard this afternoon, so I'll be trying to see if I can find cheetah. Especially at this weather, it's very nice to see them hunting. Umenichanganya.
Well, I'm still with my elephants, and as always, they're always doing something. That is the good side for elephants. Is they never sleeping. Is if they're out in the grass, making sure that we don't have extra grass that is not needed. Without the elephants, a lot of grass would overgrow and it will become waste. Of course, it can become manure when it dries, but in case of something like a fire, it can be very extreme fire because of the accumulation. You can imagine a thick blanket of grass, which means it could kill everything, including even the old trees, because the heat can penetrate deep. And so elephants play a big role in minimizing this amount of grass. The wildebeest do it, but the elephants are always and constantly, making sure that the grass is kept at check. Not only that, imagine, a place like this without elephants and them having, transplanted, trees out in the plains using, dropping their dung here and there. There would be so many trees such that would have forests growing or coming back. That means it's the end of plains game like zebra, Thompson's gazelle, even, toppies. And with that going away, it means that cheetahs and lions will also not exist. So, although we do say they convert land second to man, they play a very big role and vital role. Also, when, they drop down trees, sometimes we say they are destructive, but they create a niche for other small critters that need places to hide, like lizards, scrub hares, snakes, owls. Those trees, when they fall, the grass grows around, and so they find a niche, to hide themselves. So elephants play a very big role, being out here in the plains, and they should always be left to exist here.
Well, as much as elephants should exist, the same with a leopard. And so a little bit of perseverance and walking around in the hot sun has paid off. We've got the old man Tingana, who is tucked in a little thicket. I suspect that he's got a kill somewhere close by. I would imagine that's why there's a smell of dead and why he ran away from us. I was on foot where I kind of heard something bound away, and then eventually we managed to find him through a bit of teamwork, which is always good. So he's taking it easy for now. He's going to be a little bit kind of shy in a way for a little bit. Often with Tingana, when he sees somebody on foot, he's not the most comfortable. So he goes a little bit kind of sort of hunched down and tries to make himself as small as possible in the hope that you'll walk past him. But he'll relax quick enough. He soon starts to understand that it's just the cars again and everything is okay. So he'll be fine just now. But I'm happy to see him. Always nice to see him. He's right at camp. So that's always a treat when we have him as close by as we do. So really, really good to see him. I was a bit worried at first when he ran away on foot that it might have been Mulawati, which would have made our lives very, very tricky. But Tingana is easy enough. Like I say, once he runs a little bit, then he just lies down, and if you find him with the car, it's okay. The reason why I say I think he's on a kill is like we were talking about when we started out, is that there's a very, very, very strong smell of something dead. And so the heat that we've had over the course of yesterday and today means that meat turns very, very quickly. And so I expect that maybe he's picked up the scent of something, whether it's his kill, whether it's an animal that's died from extreme heat of late. Who knows what it is. I mean, we haven't seen a carcass. They've just smelt that. He might have also only eaten something last night and it's finished, but the smell of the meat is still on him, and therefore he has quite a pungent smell to him. It sometimes can happen with cats if they've been eating quite rotten carcasses. So we'll just have to wait and see. We'll have to just be patient, and eventually, if he does have a kill, he'll walk his way back there. But the good news is that there's water close by, so hopefully he'll go for a drink a little bit later because it's so hot today. And so, we should be good for a nice sighting a little bit later. David, how long did it take to get my tracking skills? David, to be honest with you, it's a constant evolving process. I don't think your tracking skills are ever fully developed. I think you're always learning, and to be very fair, I'm certainly not the most skilled tracker that is out there. There are a lot of people that are far more skilled than I am. I've just gotten lucky in that I've spent some time with some very good trackers that have helped me over the course of the last 11 years, 12 years, and have shown me some tricks and things like that. And because I've worked in a similar area for a long period of time. So this reserve has been my home, or was my home permanently, for about 11 years. And that means that you start to understand the area, the lay of the land, game paths that animals like to use, and water points, and that can really help narrow down where you're checking. So you can become a lot more successful on your home ground, so to speak. But that's why when you do your tracking assessments, is that you don't do them where you actually work, because it's that much easier. So you got to do them in other places. But yeah, it's a constantly evolving thing. And like I say, I'm by no means the most skilled tracker at all. I like doing it, and I've had some success, but most of that is thanks to a lot of very, very clever, skilled gentlemen that have taught me a few little tricks along the way. And to be honest, the more you practice it, the better you get. It is a bit of a sixth sense, so you've got to have that kind of idea of what animal you're tracking, what their behavior is, and then kind of start to go with your gut feel in a lot of respects, because you're not always going to be able to see a footprint for an animal, but if once you start to understand the process and you understand what animal you're following, that starts to make it a lot easier. The more you do it, the more successful you become, and the more you see, and the more you're able to pick up tracks in places that others wouldn't. And it's very noticeable when we leave and kind of go away for a month, and then you come back. The first few days, you kind of scratch your head because you can't see tracks as well as you used to, and it just takes a few days to get that eye back in again, and a few tracking assignments, if you want to call it that. Tracking sessions is probably a better word. And then you start to kind of pick it up again. But there's definitely some very skilled gentlemen out there. Herbie, who used to work with us when we used to do bushwalks a few years ago, he is an unbelievable tracker, and he probably taught us, all of us, that guide here at Juma, so much about tracking, and all the little idiosyncrasies that come with it. So yeah, it's a cool thing to do. I mean, there's very few better rewards than following a track and a trail through areas and thickets, especially one that's difficult, and then seeing that animal on foot. It's always a great feeling when you eventually find them. All right, well, we're going to spend the afternoon with our boy and see what he gets up to. I'm hoping he'll come out of his thicket a little bit later.
Well, Tristan found the leopard he was looking for. This giraffe has found the leaves it was looking for. So it seems to be eating from what looks like a buffalo thorn. Very, very delicious, especially at this time of year. I've just had my lunch. I'm glad this giraffe's getting its lunch. Hi, I'm Mike. Behind the camera is Seb, and you've joined us at Eco Training's Pridelands Conservancy. And we're using this nice big shady weeping boer bean to watch these giraffes right now. Most of the animals are in the shade. This giraffe is deciding that lunch is more important than staying cool at this time of day, which is fine. There's a whole bunch of giraffes around this area, and each to their own. This particular one is deciding that lunch is very much on the menu. A bit more to the left there, old Seb. No, it's difficult with the light. It's very, very bright at the moment. So you can see that giraffe there is eating from a very, very spiny tree called a buffalo thorn, and it's got these very, very sharp, straight and hooked thorns. It's really got, the best defenses of any sort of tree in this area. In fact, it's actually in Afrikaans called wachenbikkie, which means wait a bit, because if you get caught in that tree, that's exactly what will happen. In fact, many animals use these trees for a bit of a defense. Some birds will put their nests in there. Wasps will use these places to stop predators from being able to get to them. And of course, the tree itself needs those thorns, because otherwise this giraffe would eat all of it. You can see how gently this giraffe is plucking leaves in between the branches there with that very, very slender snout and that long tongue that pops out every now and again. May of Fate, I don't understand the question at all. What is the biggest giraffe barrel that I've ever fallen into? I don't know if I heard that correctly. I've never fallen into any sort of a giraffe before, I don't think. It'd be awkward if I did. Giraffe burrow. Oh, the burrows of a giraffe. Well, burrows are all shapes and sizes, and giraffes' burrows are particularly deep and very, very uncomfortable to fall into. In fact, you'll be digging your way out of those for a long time. And also, every now and again, giraffes leave their larders in the trees to collect for later. Sometimes people call them Red Bull Buffalo Weaver nests, but that's completely incorrect. They are, in fact, giraffe feeding stations. Of course, giraffes don't make burrows. They live above ground all their life, strangely enough. I would never have thought so. With such a long neck and a strangely shaped body, I thought the underground subterranean life would have been a perfect place for them to live. But, you know, they've got these big ears and big eyes and long legs like this, so everything for them is great for above ground living. They can see long distances and they can hear things coming. This one is actually deciding that it's had enough food, it's going to go into the shade. I'm sure there are a couple of other giraffes in the shade there as well. We actually can see 4 of them at the moment. Just this one is really clearly, can be seen with the camera. Unfortunately, the rest of them are sort of quite well hidden. There's, in fact, I don't know if you can see that one just to the left there, Seb. There's a very dark one. Oh, there's 2. There's one with its head up, and then there's one with a very, very dark body. I think this might be the one that we call TDH, although it's been so long since we saw him, it might not be. I can't say that I've ever taken, too many snapshots of him to be able to identify him by spot pattern. But he's a very handsome giraffe nonetheless, enjoying feeding in the shade. This is a clever giraffe, you see, doesn't have to stand in the sun to eat. Just likes to stand in the shade and ruminate. Delicious.
Welcome back on board here at Tswalu Kalahari, and we have got something very colourful to show you folks. Flowers, and the identification of flowers always a very interesting and sometimes a very tricky thing to get involved in. But a tree like this over here with its beautiful prominent yellow flowers is fairly easy. And also its structure, the bush itself. This is a raisin bush, or its genus would be Grevia, and a really nice flower that has just in the past couple of days decided to bust out. Beautiful yellow color, very important when it comes to attracting one that needs to be doing something very important over here. So insects in the spectrum that they see in is obviously UV. Unlike us, they see yellow in a totally different color. Possibly, more than likely, yes. And this is a very attractive motive for insects. This yellow is very tantalizing. So anything from bees, wasps, you name it, even butterflies will be very attracted to this tree from these big, beautiful beacons showing where you should go. So the petals, obviously very important when you look at petals. These are basically landing pads, but also very attractive points to direct the insect's attention to where it should be going, which is this central part over here. Really beautiful. So these parts over here right on top, that was where the pollen will be produced, which obviously needs to be taken from one flower to another flower. Flowers or plants can also be hermaphrodites. Oh, look at the grasshopper here. Look at the juvenile grasshopper. Watch on this side. There he is there. See him? It's a juvenile grasshopper. You can see from its color. Also its body plan, you can see it's a grasshopper with very strong and very developed legs. Or hind legs. Beautiful. I think it'll be a milkweed or maybe an juvenile elegant grasshopper. So sitting on the tree nice and still, and obviously that is a very efficient way of staying out of harm's way. But back to these beautiful yellow flowers from this raisin bush is fantastic to see, very beautiful to look at and then also to smell. Obviously we enjoy it a lot.
Good afternoon from a very windy Ambi on Pinder Private Game Reserve, where we've managed to find a beautiful little Senegal lapwing that's busy bracing into the wind. See how it's leaning forward in the short grass there. My name is Damon, and behind the camera this afternoon we've got Ger, and we are exploring some short grass plains this afternoon in amongst some of the bigger thickets. This morning there was a mother cheetah and 2 cubs that were left not far from here, and it's them that we've come out here in search of. Amazingly though, just a few moments ago before you came to us, we had quite a special little encounter with a female leopard. We've been watching 2 giraffes resting, and suddenly they both stared intensely into a bush, and we then spotted the leopard, but unfortunately we just couldn't keep up with her. She was hunting through some very thick bush, and even in this vehicle we couldn't keep up with her. For now, we've got this beautiful little Senegal lapwing, like I said, bracing itself against the wind, sitting out here in the open. It's got a mate here too. There's 2 of them, more than likely a male-female pair. See, there's the other one right over there. And for now, these lapwings are, I think, just trying to get a bit of shelter from the wind. Although they are standing out in the open. See how they're facing into the wind to avoid themselves getting blown over. Very, very, very powerful winds blowing. And these lapwings would have spent the day walking around, feeding, looking for things like termites. And often in these very short grassy plains we find these birds, especially clearings, anywhere that's nice and open. Old airfields and well-grazed areas. Look at them busy scratching behind its head. Shame, look at how it's fluffed its feathers up. Obviously a bit chilly with this hard wind that's blowing over it. And you'd think that a bird like this, I mean, in this horrible wind, would maybe go and try and seek shelter in a thicket somewhere. Sinak, you're asking if these birds camouflage somehow. Well, Sinak, have a look at the back of that lapwing and look at how brown it is. And imagine if it sat very, very, very still. And especially in this wind where all the grass is moving around it. If you weren't looking very carefully, Sinak, you would very easily overlook this bird. And even more so if it were to sit down. For example, while it might be maybe during the breeding season when they'd be incubating their eggs, if they sit still, Sinak, on the ground, that brown plumage and the brown-grey plumage on their back camouflages them very well to their surroundings. And very often, just sitting still is a very good form of camouflage. Lots of different animals, as long as they don't move, they can be easily overlooked by both predators and prey alike. And I think that was what gave away that leopard that we just saw to the giraffes, was the fact, I think she'd been there for a while, but she maybe just stood up and started to move around, and then that movement must be what caught the giraffe's attention, because there was a sudden movement of both of the giraffes' heads looking straight towards her. And so she must have just come out of the cover that she was resting in. But I was saying, strange that these birds are not going into the shelter of some thickets to try and get away from the wind like many of the other birds. But because these Senegal lapwings are adapted to more open grassy plains, and they're adapted to walking around on the ground and then flying away to escape from a predator. If they were in some thick bush and a predator were to suddenly surprise them, they could easily get caught up with their wings in the branches. And so that's why they'd rather just stick it out in the open here. But Gert and I are going to leave these 2 Senegal lapwings as they try and minimize the effects of the wind on their bodies, and we're going to continue searching for that mother cheetah and her 2 youngsters.
Well, good luck, Damien, with finding cheetah. It would be nice. Okay, I've left my elephants, and this is a different herd. It's about 3 kilometers down the road, and it's another very beautiful herd of elephants. Excuse the noise. Some people are arriving to visit this beautiful place. Well, you can see they have surrounded that little termite mound. It could have a specific plant that they're looking for. That is one of the matriarchs. I can tell that this elephant is very comfortable, no stress. I can tell that. Usually females, they have what we call a mast gland, that it's on the cheek, and sometimes if they are stressed, it will swell. Joshua Jumbo, what is an elephant life expectancy? Yeah, they live very long, Joshua, almost as long as humans. They live for over about 65 years to 70, in between that. Let's take it as 60 to 70. That's how long they live. It's a long, long life, very much like a human. I was talking about the mast gland. You know, Bungay will show you where it is. It's a gland that usually secretes watery fluid. It's on the cheek. It's normal for elephants. But when they are stressed, sometimes it runs more and makes the facial side very, very wet. In elephants, when their hormonal balance goes high and their testosterone, rise because they are in heat, they're looking for females, sometimes it secretes a much thicker fluid, which sometimes clogs the gland, which makes it swell. And when it swells, it makes them really, really angry and unpredictable, and that's why you should never get close to an elephant in mast. They have been noticed, elephants with mast, to put their trunks down such that to relax the mast gland. Well, I'm gonna move on again. Let's find out what's happening somewhere else.
Welcome back to this side. Of course, I always try and avoid elephants in mask. Now we've come across this big buffalo herd. They seem like they're all resting, but it seems because of our presence, some of them have started waking up and actually facing our direction. You can see lots of cattle egrets there. Of course, buffaloes, they'll eat during the day, and at a time like this, they'll spend their time resting. Before we got out, it was actually sunny, too hot, and I'm sure that's the reason why these buffaloes chose this place to rest. Most of the females sometimes, who are very, very aggressive, especially because they have the calves there, they will rest in the direction that when they wake up, they will follow and walk that direction. Soon after this, some of these will start going back to rest. And I think the reason why they're facing us is because they saw us coming and some of them decided to wake up. But you can see the ones to the right are actually very much relaxed. So these are good point where it's raised. They can see from all directions as they're chewing their cud. And then slowly they begin waking up and head towards a place where they'll drink water and carry on to graze, and then in the middle of the night they pick another spot where they'll rest. So as they're doing this, the young ones are always placed in the middle of the herds for protection, and you always see the big bulls with the very big bosses be actually on the edges of these herds. Very curious. They're watching us, thinking what to do. I'm still going to sit here and see what these buffaloes will do.
Welcome back, and look what David has found for us. When we were busy looking at this beautiful grevia or raisin bush, David stumbled upon a bit of movement under the bush, and we have found a magnificent little reptile. Not one, but two little reptiles. This is a tortoise, and it looks like it's actually coming out from its wintering burrow system. You can see how it's shifting soil to make a bit of movement so it can come out. So this is where this little reptile would have stayed throughout the winter periods. Obviously they slow their metabolic rate down, they become very inactive. Oh my word, hello my friend. This is a little Kalahari tent tortoise. One of two species of tortoise that we have on Tswalu. We have the largest species called the leopard, and then we've got this beautiful little species called the Kalahari tent, and this is one of them. Oh my word. Welcome to another summer, my friend. So obviously now with the days getting warmer and warmer, that's when these reptiles that have taken time to evade the cooler periods of the year will start to emerge and become very active. You can see in the past 2-3 weeks snakes have been very active, and this is the first tortoise I've actually seen this year. So if one is larger than the other, the smaller one is trying to reverse himself out, and it's a little bit of a difficult task. Really interesting stuff, guys. This is amazing. For me, seeing this is the first time in my career. So tortoises will go under logs. Some of them go into termite mounds, and then a lot of them dig underground. They'll dig a small chamber, and in this chamber they will reside and stay underground through the cooler parts of the year. And they're basically living off fat reserves to keep them going, but their body activity is down to a minimum to ensure that they can survive, because when they're in this state they don't eat, and only now when it starts getting a bit warmer they will start emerging to find the available food that they need. But how amazing is this?
I expect the same can be said for Tingana, although he's moved a little bit, but he's now deep in the shade. As you can see, they're quite tricky to see them when they're in the shade. That spotted coat really does help blend them into their environment, and I think he's waiting out the heat just like that tortoise. I can tell you, because we're sitting in the sun, that it is extremely hot in the sun, so I don't blame him for being in the kind of shady parts there. What I can also tell you is, after following Tingana and seeing him stand up, is that he does have a nice full belly and he smells like rotten meat. So I'm pretty sure he's got a kill close by here. Where, I'm not sure. We haven't been taken to it yet, but I think if we're patient enough, either he's going to take us to the kill, or hopefully he's going to take us to the nearest pan for a bit of a drink of water just now, given how warm it is. I think that you'll find that it's going to be the order of the afternoon for the Duke. But if I keep quiet, you might just be able to hear his panting. It's difficult to hear, but you can hear it. He's breathing so heavily. No, it's tricky now. Earlier we could hear him clearly. He was kind of breathing heavily, trying to cool himself down. When cats are full like he is at the moment, it pushes up on their lungs a little bit, and it just suppresses the amount of air that they can take in. On top of that, it's really, more than anything, it's just designed to cool him down. You can imagine if it's hot for us as humans who have very little hair on our body, in comparison to them, they really start to overheat quite quickly. And so without shade and the ability to pant, we wouldn't find cats in this particular part of the world. It would be too hot in the summer months for them to survive. And so what he's doing is he's basically breathing out, and that hot air from the internal part of his body is coming over the saliva, and that's causing evaporation. And that's what's cooling down the blood in the tongue and then cooling down the whole body. Sticks and Stone, you're asking, is Tingana still territorial or is he nomadic? To be honest with you, I suspect that he's starting to go more in the sort of nomadic route. Just to give you an idea, I don't have a map with me, but it would have been nice to have had a map to show you this. But to give you an idea, he has been from our far west, so from the point that we're at right now, in kilometers, let's call it probably about 12 kilometers to the west. Then he walked all the way back to where we are now, basically, and then north, another 10 kilometers. Then he went from there south, probably about 20 kilometers, and then back into this, back north about 10 kilometers, and then back to us about 10 kilometers. And that's all in the space of the last 5 days. So it gives you an idea how far he's moving. A lot of the areas that he has gone to in that time are all old haunts of his, but places that he hasn't been territorially dominant for quite a while. So Simambili, Cheetah, these are places that he hasn't been traveling at all. But recently, all of a sudden, he's kind of started to move. And there could be a couple of reasons for it. It could be that he's now going nomadic, which is what I suspect, given we followed him the other day for quite a long time, and there was no scent marking, there was no indication of him actually trying to mark a territory. We don't hear him very vocal these days. I know there was a leopard calling a lot yesterday evening around this area, but it didn't sound like him. It sounded like possibly a female. And I think it's also due to the fact that Mulawati and Hukumari are so busy with all these young males to the southwest that it means that this area has just become a playground for him in many respects, and he's just roaming around doing his thing, and he's getting to mate every now and then. But I don't think he's as territorially dominant as he was, let's say, a year ago, 2 years ago. So, but time will tell. We need to see and spend more time with him in order to fix that and then to establish exactly how nomadic he is. You can see, though, that he's starting to get a little bit more sleepy. So, I mean, he was initially quite alert and kind of wary, and that's to be expected given the fact that, like I say, he saw us on foot, and so you can understand that. But he's starting to get back to kind of sleepy Tingana. The heat will be draining and punishing for him, so pretty sure he's going to have a bit of a nap at some point, and then I would expect him to either go down towards his kill to go feed, or he's going to go for water. But you can see that tummy now, that he's just stood up, nice and full. All right, so he's going to reposition, and we'll just sit here with him and see what he gets up to.
Welcome back to the Mara. I can see our buffaloes are slowly beginning to wake up. Lots of cattle have started coming back. I can hear ox peckers. Just listen to that. It's very, very interesting, because sometimes those ox peckers really play an important role to these herds. They warn them against predators, and sometimes it works. And also, they get to eat those sticks that hang on their bodies. The cattle eagles also enjoy very much, because when these buffaloes walk, those insects disturbed, they get an advantage to eat that. Soon after, these buffaloes will all head to a water place where they'll go drink and then carry on to eat. I've seen these buffaloes moving from one area to another, and it's because we have adequate amount of grass. Very nice. You can see all of them looking at us. Mostly the cows, the older cows, facing us. And it's going to be a very interesting thing as they walk all together, following the lead herd members, especially the big bulls and the cows.
Well, that did not take too long. You're back with us here at Ambient Pinda, and this mother cheetah and her youngsters are lying in much the same place apparently as where they were left this morning, taking it easy and trying to get a bit out of the wind by lying behind this thicket. Look at how relaxed Mum looks. Her eyes are closed tight, sleeping. But notice how her head, see how it's cocked up like that, compared to her two sleeping cubs that are lying flat out, completely flat on the ground. Their heads down, so sleeping in a bit more of a relaxed state than she is. Of course, her sleeping with her neck up like that. If she does hear a strange sound or get a smell in her up her nostrils carried on the wind, she'll be able to just open her eyes and look around. So, a bit different to that Senegal lapwing that we saw earlier, in that she's actually decided to move her youngsters off of the open clearing and bring them into the cover, or bring them into some relative cover here behind a thicket. But just like that Senegal lapwing, she won't want to stray too far from this patch of open short grassland. And have a look at her tummy. Oh, there we go, she just opened her eyes. Those beautiful orange eyes. There you go, just like we were saying, having a quick little look around her to make sure that there's nothing trying to sneak up on her. Those of you who've been watching may remember that yesterday afternoon she was successful in hunting a sub-adult female Inyala, and her cubs feasted on that. And so they've got nice full bellies. There you go, do you see how she just gave a big sigh? Tummy doesn't look super full. Looks like she's already digested quite a bit of what she ate yesterday, but full enough that she can afford to take basically a whole day of rest. She literally hasn't moved more than 100 meters. Craig, you're asking how many spots do cheetah have? Craig, I've never counted, and I've never read anything about exactly how many spots they have on their bodies, but I heard apparently someone the other day did actually sit and count them, and they said that it was something like 2,000. Now, that's not my own words, that was just a story that I heard recently. But I'm not 100% sure, Craig. I've never read anything about it. I do remember seeing a stat, though, a little while ago, that there's apparently more spots on a cheetah's body than there are cheetah in South Africa. But again, I'm not 100% sure if that is a correct figure. I'll have to get back to you on that, Craig. Perhaps a little bit later in this show or tomorrow. Look at how Mum is slowly starting to nod off again. Oh, she's fighting to keep her head up. Shame. I suppose this is the cheetah equivalent of, I'm sure we've all had that experience where it's a cold, windy, rainy day outside, and you wake up and you're in bed and you're all warm and cozy. You don't want to get up and go moving around too much. Shame. She just caught herself falling asleep there. Did you see that? Her head was starting to sink down towards the ground, but then she woke up. Well, I'm glad that we were able to find this mother cheetah and her two youngsters. And I think that Gert and I are going to spend a little bit more time here with them, just to see if they get up to anything.
And welcome back to And Beyond Ngala, where we've just come across a very lively scene of quite a large number of impalas and some wildebeest. In fact, something very interesting just happened. Literally, the wind just started picking up. And before then, the impalas were all laying down in the shade of the nearby Majikwaris. And some of the wildebeest are still down. And you can see slowly but surely some of them are starting to get active and get up as well. Now myself, I've been trying to look this area specifically for other things. Maybe some giraffe or large herds of zebras, which often comes to these parts. You can see clearings like this one that we're looking at the moment. There's a characteristic of this part of the reserve, and we usually don't see this many general game animals in the clearings north of the Timbavati riverbed. There are spots, of course. You can actually hear two hornbills also displaying in the distance. If you can look at those wildebeest, they're almost completely disappeared in that shade. Quite difficult to see.
I think everything is in the shade at this stage, and I must be honest, I'm quite jealous of those that are in the shade. Given my English background, being in the sun is generally not the best thing for me, and so I am being burnt like a little tomato at this stage. So I'm sure I'll start to look like a cooked prawn by the end of this afternoon, which is probably not the best look. But anyway, it's worth it. We're sitting with a leopard, which is always very, very, very exciting. So it's all good. Tingana has gotten to his heavy breathing stage again. Every now and then you can hear him just kind of pulsing, and you can hear this sort of tongue almost slapping against the roof of his mouth as he tries to cool himself down. And I don't know why he's so hot, because he's perfectly positioned in the shade. There's a nice little breeze blowing, and when you're in the shade itself, it's actually fairly pleasant, but in the direct sun, not so much. And I'm a bit upset because when we started our game drive this afternoon, there were a few clouds around, and it was actually very pleasant out here. But those clouds have all but vanished and have moved away. But at some point, this has all got to give. We can't have heat like this for too much longer without rain coming. I suspect that we'll start to see a build-up of these clouds over the next couple of days, and soon rain will start to come through, and we'll end up in a situation where it will just ease this heat and it will cool everything down again, which would be most welcome. A lot of the green growth that we've had over the course of the rains that we've had is going to be getting cooked with this particular weather that we're having. Hannes, does he have any offspring? So yes, he's got quite a few different offspring that are in the area. So theoretically, some of them we're not 100% sure of yet, but Hosana, Tlalamba, Tamba, Tiani, potentially, I don't know if Kara has been tested. I mean, it should be Hukamuri for Kara, but you never know. I'm trying to think who else there is around this area. Luna, we're not sure, but she could be his offspring. Who else? I'm trying to think of who else is around that would be part of his lineage. That's it that I can think of. I'm probably missing a couple of them that are around, but there's quite a few. He's done fairly well in his time. What's been interesting with him is how far he's kind of traveled in his years in terms of mating, and so he's covered quite a number of females. I've seen Tingana mating with Insele, Tandi, Salesh. He hasn't mated with Tiani, obviously that's his daughter. I've seen him mating with that female from Buffle's Hook, which was the mother of Luna. We've seen him mating with Shadow. So quite a few different individual leopards that he's been able to cover over his period of time, and that's because of how his territory shifted and changed. He went from being very far to the west of Simambili and Elephant Plains, and then he slowly but surely shifted east more and more and more and more. And then in his prime, he had a monstrous territory that's came from Arathusa Elephant Plains boundary all the way to Nkoro. So if any of you look on a map on Google, you'll be able to see how far that is. And he encompassed all of that. And then slowly but surely that was eroded, and he kind of started to push a little bit further east. And then he sort of came back from the east a little bit further to the west and kind of centralized on Djuma. And then he was here for quite a number of years. And then now it's kind of seems as though he's moving around back in his sort of normal sort of territorial movements, but he's been spending a lot more time to the north of us than he did a year ago, which I think is due to the fact that Mulawati was around and pushing. We know that Mulawati mated with Shadulu when she was in heat and calling in this area. So I expect that's what caused him to move a little bit. But, I mean, he's going strong for a leopard of his age, and the fact that he's mated recently with Insele. I saw him mating with Insele 3 weeks ago. So he's still mating even at his age, and even though we are not seeing him displaying as territorial behavior as we've seen in the past. So hopefully there'll be some more offspring. It'll be really cool to see if Insele has cubs, and that'll be kind of his last offspring that comes out. I'd be so excited if that's the case. All right, well, we're going to stay with him. We're going to see what he gets up to. Hopefully at some point he'll come out of his bush and kind of put on a bit of a show.
Welcome back to the Mara, where our buffaloes are still resting, and can see some of them are actually waking up. My name is Tim. Very nice to be in the Masai Mara watching this beautiful herd who seems like they want to be moving, and it looked like they want to head towards the escarpment there, where there's very nice stream where they can go and drink. So buffaloes will always drink like twice in a day, early morning and then in the late afternoon. So they're almost heading towards their second time to drink. Because in the small calves with very brown fur, who tend to be a very good camouflage for predation when they have that brown fur. And as they keep on growing, the brown fur will be replaced by the black fur, like what's evident in the adults. They're slowly moving off. Noisy oxpeckers up in the air. So these herds keep on moving from one area to another, even though they don't occupy territories. They have what we call big home ranges. So these home ranges will be overlapped by sometimes other buffaloes who will come to use these grazing grounds, but they don't actually mix up with other group of herds. Sometimes these herds can fluctuate, being very big. I've seen up to about 700, 800, and especially during the dry season, where they'll be walking from one area to another in search of water. You can see some of the cattle egrets leaving, or maybe moving to one side because of the movement. There's some insects that have actually been disturbed. Angie, thank you for your question. They start growing their horns when they're about from 6 months old. You'll see them developing small horns. So that is the beginning of when you start seeing them with horns. Seems like it's a little bit busy there. Lots of cattle egrets moving up and about. So it's important because these birds following these herds also control ticks and other insects, especially the cattle egrets control the insects that are always in the grass, while the oxpeckers control the ticks. Because these big herds or these bovines carry lots of ticks with them. So the oxpeckers give a very good control in ticks, so that we don't always see these animals being affected by the tick-borne diseases. while some are resting and some are moving off, I'm going to take you over to another live location.
So talking about buffalo with birds conditioning their skin, we just came across this warthog. It looks like a young warthog, judging from the size of the tusks. And he's actually having a bit of a dilemma. He came down, it's very hot, so he rolled in the mud to help cool him down. And he's also looking for a stump to scratch himself up against. And we might get to see that. But now, there's lots of other animals in this area. And every now and again you'll notice one of them looking up at him, and each time this warthog stopping and having a look, and he was all on his own, so he was quite nervous. He came running over from the direction that he's walking back into. And have a look, you can see his tail's not up, he's not running away like we normally see warthogs here on Ngala when we see them out here. Here we go, tail up. Cyrus, what is a male warthog called? I believe it is a boar. Actually, I'm not even 100% sure. Unfortunately, there we go. See, now he's just picked up the pace and he's running back. It might be that maybe somewhere nearby there's a burrow where he was laying up because of the heat. And you can see there's a lot of other animals nearby in this area. It's a good feeding area for animals like these wildebeest as well as the impalas. And it attracts relatively large herds. Most of the animals are up right against the edge of the tree line. And I think that's because they were hiding there from the heat before this breeze picked up. Just look at that large herd of impala. It's actually interesting to see that a lot of animals have their head down. There's not so many of them looking up. I think when the warthog came running out towards that watering hole earlier, that gave them their initial fright. And now they've gone back to relax.
Welcome back to Anbion Private Game Reserve here in the northeastern part of South Africa in KwaZulu-Natal, where we are still sitting with this mother cheetah and her two youngsters. There have been a few little movements from them every now and then, but for the most part they're still taking it easy, still relaxing. Got mom grooming herself there. Just so lovely to get to spend a bit of time with them, even though they're just lying down and resting. It's just so special to get to be up close and personal with these big cats and to get to just watch the lovely interactions between the mother and her two little ones. Have a look how mom's starting to lick her chest there, starting to groom her shoulders. And it's a bit tough to see, but if you look just behind her, oh, there's a big yawn from mom. Look at those big canine teeth. Look at where that little cub is lying. It's using mom's shoulder blades as something of a pillow. And I spoke just now about how, there you go, lifted its head a little bit there. Almost like bookmarks lying with their crooked up necks back to back. And mom keeping herself clean, and I think that youngster just lifting its head in response to an extra strong gust of wind. Oh my word, that is too precious. I hope you're all getting screenshots of that. Oh my goodness, that's too cute. Look at that. Lovely to see how affectionate this little cub is towards its mother. How they love to lie close together. Al, you're asking me if I've ever seen a king cheetah. Al, I haven't seen one in the wild. They are very rare in the wild, I suppose, a little bit like the white lions over at Ngala. And just like the white lions over at Ngala, it's actually not an animal that we see very commonly. It's the same species as this cheetah. It's just a genetic mutation. So it's where at some stage in the development of the baby cheetah in the womb, it has the genes that code for the production of melanin in its body cause an overproduction of melanin, and so as a result it ends up being much darker than normal, and the spots end up being linked up in what almost looks like stripes. And for those of you that haven't seen a king cheetah or a photograph of a king cheetah, I'm going to pull it up in the animal book here for you so that you can have a look. It is quite bizarre. So we'll just have a quick little look in the book. Ooh, the wind blowing the pages all over the place. But there's a picture of a king cheetah. So see, normally, like our cheetahs here, just covered in spots like that. But then the king cheetah, with all those spots almost like they're joined up together. Like I said, caused by an overproduction of melanin in the body, causing the stripes to all link up and form almost blotches or stripes. But yeah, very rare in the wild. Just because that particular coat doesn't allow them to blend in as well as a normal coat would, so it's much tougher for them to survive.
Well, from far, far away, south of Africa, to East Africa, Masai Mara, the Mara Triangle, and look what I have here. Yes, you might say a leg. No, it's a lion. That is one of the River Pride lionesses. I have come to a place where I had been finding them for quite a while, and I decided to come and see if I could find one, and there she is. It's a long way down there, but with the camera magic we're able to bring her much closer. This is where, she had some cubs. Yeah, hello, I'm Isaac, here in Masai Mara. Please remember to send in your questions. I will answer them right here, live, right now. So, and back to our lions. Yes, and I've been coming here for quite a while, trying to find them with the cubs, but in vain. I have come right now, and there she is. She looks like she ate really, really well. Remember, this is a pride that's very big, but due to unexplainable reasons, they have split into smaller groups of 3s and 2s and 4s. The last time I saw them, the most, I saw them they were about 6, and 5 of them were lionesses, and they were with a young male. I know there is 4 cubs that are almost now 3 months, and then there is 3 cubs that are 2 months. Riley Jumbo, how long will a lioness sleep or a lion sleep, after eating? Well, they are masters of sleeping, lions and lionesses. They will sleep up to 18 to 20 hours a day. And if they've been feeding very well, they can even exceed that to almost 22 hours. So they know how to sleep, and that's how long they sleep. Of course, they deserve to sleep that long, because when heading out and looking for something, they work really, really, really hard. I always try to correct, many people, to tell them that lions are not lazy. They deserve the rest, because when looking for something, they work really, really hard. They live in what we call prides, and prides mainly are made up of of a pride male or pride males, some females, their youngsters, and they hold a territory of about 6 to 10 square kilometers here in the Mara. Of course, in areas where it's drier, territories will be bigger, but the prides will be smaller. Look at that amazing view we have there. Elephants, old dagger boys. Yeah, those are buffaloes, very old. You can tell even from the look. They're quite old. This is a safe haven for them. You know, nice soft grass. I refer it to, you know, it's like eating spaghetti or noodles. Rob Jumbo, do elephants mostly eat grass in the Mara? No. They eat about 60 to 70% grass and about 30% browse, which when I say browse, it's leaves from many different types of trees. We have the orange leaf croton, the Wambogia ugandensis, the Asparus abyssinica, Oleo africana, Solana mincanum. So there's very many creepers. We do have very many also. So they mix that. But that is a decision that is always made by the matriarch. She knows what they lack and what they need, and so she takes them to the correct place where they can find, you know, what they need. Looks like a few more are coming out of the trees. It is a pattern that we have seen here in the last couple of maybe months, where elephants come out in big numbers from the forest down there, where they've been taking refuge from the extreme sunlight during the day. Of course, you know, the day wasn't very hot, but it's a trend that, you know, they have had during, you know, the last few months, where they go, stay there in the evening, come out, and I don't blame them. It's a nice, you know, nice time to come and look, you know, or watch the sun go down, if you're a human, and if you're an elephant, to enjoy this soft grass that is everywhere. It's been raining, and so that spot there, it's a little bit soggy. I cannot go there, it's wet. But for them, the grass is so soft, and they actually don't need to drink water when they eat that grass. Remember, the elephant population at the moment in Kenya stands over about 34,000. You might say, whoa, you thought there were more than that? No. The numbers really went down, you know, quite a lot in the last, you know, decade due to poaching and human-wildlife conflict. But they are making a very, very good comeback. I'm gonna stay here with my beautiful Elise. Let's see what's happening in our next location.
Well, it just goes to show, when you look after populations and you provide them with ample area to roam, that their numbers do increase. It's the same story for the Kruger system. The exponential increase of elephants in the Kruger has been absolutely unbelievable, and so hopefully it will continue up in that part of the world, up in the Mara. It's probably one of the most beautiful places to see elephants, you know, with that backdrop of that escarpment and those big rolling plains. Is really quite wonderful. Sometimes you even get them crossing the Mara River, which is also pretty spectacular. But as you can see, Tingana is still battling the heat. He's a happy sausage at this stage. After he's eaten him a lot, you know, even though it's warm, you know, he's got a full belly, he's got water close by, so he's got everything he needs. It's just about coping with the heat for the next sort of 45 minutes, and then it'll start to cool off quite nicely. And where he's sitting now won't be too bad at all. When we were in the shade a little bit earlier, it was actually quite pleasant because there is a little bit of a breeze blowing. But so he's not going to be too kind of bad, but you know, still needs to do a bit of breathing in order to sort it out. And you notice how his panting is actually keeping him awake at times. He kind of starts to nod off and then wakes himself up. HB, so advantages to being nomadic over territorial. So there's pros and cons to it. If you're a territorial individual, you're expending a huge amount of energy patrolling, making sure that other males are not getting into your territory. So going around, scent marking, vocalizing, and constantly patrolling your boundaries in order to keep others at bay. You're also having to physically try and push other males out if they do come in, and that can lead to fighting, and obviously you also have the mating side of things. So there's a lot that goes in with territorial. As a nomadic individual, he doesn't have to expend nearly as much energy, because when he hears another male leopard soar, he can go the other direction. He doesn't have to scent mark as much, which means he doesn't have to walk as far if he doesn't want to. So the expenditure of energy can be lower as a nomadic individual, provided he's not being pressured by others. If he's getting heavy pressure from other leopards, which in Tingana's case he's not at this stage, it doesn't seem like any males are really pushing him around. In the last few weeks, we haven't seen, any sign of males following his track, scent marking in his area, calling around here. And so, he's free to do pretty much what he wants if he's a nomadic individual. Mvula lived a life like that for a long time, where he was able to just kind of mosey on around. He didn't have to walk too far, he didn't have to do too much, and every now and then he would steal a little bit from a female, kind of hunt his own things, and lived a pretty chilled retirement. And I would imagine with Tingana, that's what's starting to happen now. I don't think he's fully nomadic yet, and I don't think he's kind of completely dropped with the sort of territorial behaviors. I think he's in a transition now as he was pressured by Mulawati, so he kind of fell off the radar in this area. But I do think that time is starting to catch up with him a little bit, and this is the nature of what happens. All right, well, we'll stay with him. Hopefully, like I say, he's going to get up at some point. It's going to take a while for things just to cool down before he does.
Welcome back to Untitled Private Game Reserve, where the wind is really starting to howl now out of the southwest. And you've joined us just in time as our mother cheetah and her two cubs have started to walk out into the clearing. Once again, my name is Damon, and behind the camera is Gert. And we're gonna stick, I think, with this mother cheetah and her two cubs for a bit of time now. Looking at her tummy, even though she did eat an inyala yesterday, it doesn't look like she actually got to eat very much. Her tummy still looks relatively empty. And the direction she's heading, we just saw quite a big herd of impala. Whether or not she decides to hunt, though, we'll only find out a little bit later. But I think for now, let's go try and loop around the thicket and get another look at her. Oh, she's just laying down there. She's not far. She's just over there. Looks like Mom and the cubs are grooming each other. Might be that Mom just decided that even though they would have had a bit of cover from the wind behind this thicket, maybe deciding it's a little bit too dense. She can't see too well there where she was. Wanting to come out into the open a little bit more to where she'll feel that she'll be able to spot any potential danger coming from far away and then be able to use her speed to escape from it. But look at how she's busy grooming herself there. And her cub, look at her cub grooming her. How cute is that, the little cub cleaning its mother's face? And reaffirming their bonds, and also, I suppose there might even be something to gain for the little cub in terms of maybe even some tasty morsels that are still left in Mom's fur after their feast yesterday, feeding on that inyala. But interesting, having a look at her belly, like we said, she doesn't look particularly full. Her cubs look like they've had a good meal. And I mean, we saw them feeding quite a bit yesterday. Mama a little bit less so. And then of course she had her carcass stolen at some time during the night or the early hours of the morning by that hyena that you saw this morning with Grant. And maybe that happened a bit earlier than, or maybe the rest of the carcass was taken a bit earlier than we thought. And of course she wouldn't have stood up to a big, strong hyena. She would have given way to it. And so maybe they lost the carcass pretty early on. But there's going to be a beautiful scene that's going to develop here as the sun starts to go down. So I think that Gerrit and I are going to spend a bit of time with this mother cheetah, see if maybe the cubs start to play, or just to watch the scene unfold.
Welcome to Tswalu Kalahari, and we have just been patiently and very quietly waiting out here because this is something very special. To be able to see a tortoise is a privilege in itself, but seeing a tortoise and where it's been residing for the past couple of months is something quite incredible. So this little animal would have dug itself into this tiny, shallow chamber around about April, May. And this is the first time, more than likely the first day it's seen sunlight. And I've never read anything about them burrowing together, so this animal would have remained here throughout the winter period, where the temperature underground, even as shallow it is, would have been a bit more of a constant. Obviously for reptiles being ectothermic, so animals relying on the external environment for their heat requirements, this would have been a perfect environment for this animal to stay safe, to save its reserves and basically waver out that unfavorable period. And now when increasing temperatures are upon us, they become a bit more active. Oh, what do these tortoises eat? So tortoises in general, they would feed on small succulents and grasses. These guys also, grasses of various kinds, and then succulents. So these are plants with very large watery leaves, very thick rubbery leaves, which obviously holds a lot of moisture for these beautiful reptiles. But yeah, grasses, forbs, seeds, flowers even they would consume at times. That would be their main form of food. But seeing them in this state of here is incredible. We know it's a Kalahari tent tortoise because if David gets us onto one of those beautiful patterns, you would see that there would be a radiating section on one of those plates referred to. Butterfly. Ah, you've got a butterfly. Oh, David's got a butterfly. Oh la la. That's a sulfur orange tip. So obviously this grevia providing a great hive of activity of insects right now. So we've seen Natal bar, we've seen zebras, that was a sulfur orange. So already 6. Yo, there we go. So right on top of the wingtip, when he sits again, you'll see that he has a very, you see him over there. There he sits there. On that flower, see him? Oh yeah, there he is. So on the very tip of the wingtip, it's got a tiny, very pale mark on the very top of the wingtip. Some of them have got grey, some species have a dark orange tip, but this is definitely a sulfur individual. See the antenna, and what he's busy doing now is using that specialized tube-like mouth called a proboscis to sap up the nectar, but in the process that proboscis is being covered, laden with pollen, and that's what the flower wants. We've got something for you, you come and get it, but in the process you're going to do something for us, and that is the transfer of pollen, a very important role that insects play with plants. Incredible. It's quite a small species, only about 2.5 centimeters in length, So a very small species in comparison to other species of butterfly that we get in South Africa. But just back onto this beautiful little tortoise, those radiating lines are unmistakable of the species itself. So you can see those beautiful dark radiating lines from the central part of the shell. That is typical of Kalahari tent tortoise. We're going to send you off somewhere else.
Right, so as you can see, Tingana is still fast asleep. He's actually dropped down, which is, I think, a lot more comfortable for him in many respects. The funny part is that just now, at one point, his whole tongue was hanging out, his mouth kind of open as he was sleeping. And kind of taking it easy, but he's closed that all up now. The nice thing was that it gave us an opportunity to actually look at his teeth, and surprisingly enough, Tingana's teeth are in actually really good condition. I mean, they are very yellowed, so they're not white anymore, but they are not as blunt as I would have thought they would be. And some parts of me often thinks, did we get his aging completely wrong the first time we saw him? It can be a tricky thing with male leopards, especially, Tingana's not a small individual, and so maybe, he developed earlier on, and maybe we just got our entire kind of estimate of his age in the beginning a little bit wrong. And that's why he's still in as good a condition as he is, because when we first started to see him, we thought he was around about 4 to 5 years old, and that was in 2011, which would make him, 13, 14 now, which is very old for a male leopard. Most male leopards in the Sabi Sands typically are between sort of 12 and 14 is a really kind of good age for them. Every now and then you'll get one that will go a little bit longer, but maybe he was younger. Maybe he was only sort of 3.5, and we just kind of messed it up all those years ago. I don't know, but either way, regardless of whether or not that is the case, for a male leopard to have held territory in an area for 9 years like he has is a testament to just how special he is as an individual. There's been many other males that have come and gone in his time, and he's managed to also kind of keep at bay some of the more kind of legendary big males of the area, in the form of Anderson. I know he gave way a little bit to Anderson, but Anderson certainly didn't kill him and didn't push him too far. He still kind of stayed in the immediate vicinity. The Everett's, I would imagine so. If you think of the amount of leopards we're seeing at the moment, the population is hugely stable. To give you an idea, we were discussing this in camp a few days ago, and just amongst everybody, the number of leopards that we've been seeing of late and the number of individuals, and it really is an extraordinary number that has been around. So, if you, just in this little stint that I've done now, I've been here for 12 days, I think. In 12 days, we've had 15 individuals. That's excluding the cub that was killed by the hyena. And so, if you think about 15 individuals in the traverse area that we've got, it's a serious amount of leopards, and we still haven't seen some of the others that are here. We still haven't seen Inkanyeni, Quarantine, Inkanyeni's current cub, Monzo, there's Mulawati hasn't been seen while we've been here. So, Kara. So there's a number of different leopards still to add to that list. Luna. So you're looking at the moment in the traverse area that we've got, which is Torchwood, Buffelshoek, Cheetah, Djuma, Simambili. You're looking at a possible 24, 25 leopards. It's a serious number of cats in quite a, relatively speaking, small area. So the population is hugely stable in a private reserve like this. Outside of reserves, though, complete opposite situation. The populations are almost non-existent these days. All right, we'll stay with Tingana. I'm hoping that he'll give us a better show of his teeth a little bit later to show all of you guys. It looks like he's starting to wake up now that the sun has gone behind some clouds.
So from a big hulking male leopard to a very sleek and petite mother cheetah and her 2 cubs, she's laying down again, not too far from the thicket that we originally found her in. And just looking at her body language, how relaxed she is, she doesn't seem to be in any kind of hunting mood as I thought that she might be a little bit earlier. I think more looking at the direction that she's moving in, she's moving kind of away from where she had that Inyala carcass yesterday. No doubt the memory of having that hyena come so close to her and her cubs, and that memory of having that carcass stolen away from her, probably still pretty fresh, and so she will want to keep away from that area and keep away from all of the big predators that might be attracted by that smell that might still be in the area. She's still looking to the west, and that's been her general direction of movement. Oh, Minamu, you're asking a very interesting question. You're asking if cheetah are genetically identical. Minamu, they are not identical, but they are all very closely related. And it's because many years ago, apparently about 12,000 years ago, around the end of the last ice age, somewhere around there was a population bottleneck where the world's population of cheetah got wiped out, and there were only a handful, only a few that were left. And because of that, every cheetah left on Earth today is descended from that very small population. So they're all very similar in terms of their genetics. And I've read that the similarity is so much that it's apparently about as similar, each cheetah left on Earth is about as similar to each other as identical twins in humans would be. Or twins in humans would be. But I suppose it's a bit of a contradiction what I've just said. Not genetically identical, but very, very, very similar, Minamu. And then, Craig, you asked earlier about the number of spots on a cheetah. So doing a quick little bit of research here into this mammal book of mine, they say it's apparently between 2,000 and 3,000 spots on a cheetah. Of course, again, coming down to genetics, each cheetah will have a different spot pattern, a different coat. They'll all look slightly different, and they'll also have, therefore, different number of spots. Some might appear lighter. For example, look at this cub in front of us here, and how its coat is kind of more of a greyish colour with a little bit of a yellow tinge to it. How it's busy grooming its mother's head. By comparison, look at its brother and how much more yellow his coat is. Forsen, you're asking if cheetah will eat leftovers from other predators, if they'll scavenge. And Forsen, typically speaking, no. Because scavenging normally involves a bit of competition. It normally involves the scavenger trying to push off the predator that originally killed the prey. So no, because cheetah are much smaller and weaker than all of the other large predators here, they'll want to avoid competition at all costs. They also tend to prefer fresher meat. They'd rather kill their own prey. There have of course been exceptions to the rule. There was a video and a series of photographs a little while ago, I think from the Masai Mara actually, where a mother cheetah and her 3 cubs actually stole a carcass, if I'm not mistaken, from a lone spotted hyena. The 4 cheetah were able to gang up on the hyena and push it off of its kill. It's also not terribly uncommon for coalitions of male cheetah to outmuscle a female cheetah over a fresh kill. Of course, for them, being a group of big males, being bigger than a single female and outnumbering her, those kind of odds will favor them, and so they'll take a chance there. And push, females have been pushed off quite a few times by males coming to take their food. But just so precious now to get to watch this little cub and its mother grooming each other. And I think Gerrit and I are going to spend some more time with these cheetah and watch this for a bit longer.
It's always nice watching cheetahs as they groom each other and how they interact. Now back in the Mara, we've come to the Mara River. And this morning I came here and the water level was rising up, and it seems like it's evident the water level has risen up from what we saw this morning. Actually, you can see on the riverbend there, 2 hippo calves have actually walked out of the water. I think it's a little bit too strong. The current is too strong for them right there. And whenever the current is strong, they always walk out of the water. You can see those are 2 youngsters playing there. About a week ago, I didn't get your name quite well, but this water is about 1.5 meters from where we are. You can see where the hippos are, it's about 1.5 meters. But sometimes when the water levels rise, you can see the level of the bank up to about 4.5 meters. Oh, they're becoming noisy. That's a big way of communication. Beautiful sound there. So the water level at this point there is about 1.5 meters. We have places where it's a little bit too deep, depending on how even the bottom is. They quite like it when the water is running and flowing. Oh, a little bit of a push off there. At the same point where these hippos are, 1.5 weeks ago, we could only see the bottom of that river because the water level had gone down, narrowed away up to when we can see the banks. You can see some of them are emerging out of the water. It's time to go and feed because I think the current is becoming too strong there. So I'm going to stay here and see if the waters keep on increasing or how these hippos are walking out, because that is normally not where we always see them walking out of. But I think it's raining upstream. So I'm just going to relax here and watch as these hippos interact while I take you over to another live location.
Well, thank you, Tim. Here I am, and I have pied kingfisher. Do you see it there? Nice camouflage. If you look carefully, you'll see a very beautiful black and white bird with an extremely long and sharp, pointy beak. This is the pied kingfisher, our second largest kingfisher here in the Masai Mara, and that is definitely a female. Female usually has got those 2 bands on the neck. The male has got 1. This is a bird that is found, close to water points or marshy areas because it feeds on fish. Of course, it will get a grasshopper if it's very close to the water, but they're always in pairs. There were 2, and then 1 flew off. They have amazing eyesight, and they have the capability to see underwater for up to maybe a foot. They can hover also. Oops. Yeah, they can fly high and hover while trying to pinpoint a frog or a fish, and then they'll drive down and hit it and swallow it. So definitely when it's here, it is here because there is some fish. You can tell that all the focus. Vanessa, Jumbo, what time does the sun set in the Mara? Around 6:40 p.m. Remember, this is East African time, very close to equator. 6:40, that is between 6:35 and 6:40 is when the sun sets. Vanessa, So this guy is definitely here because there is some fish here, or some tadpoles. That's why it's here, because they feed on fish. Looks like he's still trying to get something. I must say the light is fading really, really fast, and he must be struggling to see, inside the water, because the water is not as clear also. But these waters are full of fish. Oh, here comes Toppy, and they are running. Okay, I think the Toppy wanted to be on the show, and he has decided to get crushed. Thank you for acting really well. That's how we planned it. The Kingfisher first, and then Toppy. Looks like he's been running a little bit. This is a male, and I think it was being chased by another male because he intruded on his females, and so he's been chased off so he can find his own. Well, this is very beautiful, but I'll leave you with that sight while we take you to the next location.
Welcome back. You've joined us just in time. The two little cubs have gotten up and they've started to play. They've been chasing each other around. It looks like the one is now pinning his brother down onto the ground. Look how he's sitting on his back legs. It's like two brothers, one bullying the other a little bit. Looks like he's now smelling his rear end, smelling his hip maybe giving him the odd little bite. Of course, it'll all be playful, nothing too sore. But I think that sudden burst is slowly kind of teetering out now, or petering out rather. Those little cubs, unlike their mother, their bellies are still quite full, so they might be a bit hesitant to get going into a full bout of play with those fat tummies. Fan, you're asking if we can identify a cheetah using their whisker spot patterns like we do with leopards? Absolutely we can. There's a couple of... Oh, shame, that cub just sneezed. Ew, gross. Shame. Just cleaning himself off there. I suppose if you haven't got hands or tissues, that's the way you do it. So yes, we can definitely use spot patterns both on the whiskers as well as on the sides of the body to identify individual cheetahs. Of course, each cheetah will have its own individual unique spot pattern that's particular to it. You can also use other features like scars. Looking at these two cheetah cubs, the one on the ground, the slightly bigger and more yellow sibling. If you have a look at his right ear, everybody, let's have a close look through our binoculars, or you guys can use the zoom of the camera. See how on his ear he's got a white line, almost like a band-aid or a plaster. There, see it there now that he's turned sideways. There's a lot of white fur that's on the black of his ears, and that's quite unusual. If you look at his brother and at his mother and other cheetahs, they don't have that. So that's another defining feature that this particular cheetah has got there. See on his brother, he doesn't have the same little mark. And the more time you spend with individual animals, you can also start to learn their facial features. And those are all different ways we can use to identify individuals. But certainly the spot patterns are definitely the most, definitely best. Rob, you're asking how fast a cheetah can run. Rob, if I'm not mistaken, the fastest that's ever been recorded was around 120 kilometers an hour, which is obviously very, very, very quick, close to 80 miles per hour if my maths is correct. But on average, Rob, they don't normally get up to that speed because, of course, when they're chasing prey, like an impala or an nyala, their prey will know that they'll be able to get outrun if they run in a straight line. And so the prey will normally run in zigzags. It'll kind of duck and dive and sidestep and jink. And so a cheetah very seldom is able to get up to that full speed in a chase. So normally, apparently, about 80 kilometers an hour is the average in a hunt. Look at the cubs heading down there into that little marshy, that dried up pan there, starting to explore their surroundings. Looks like Mum has stood up as well, and she's started to move. And as they head off into the soft light of the evening, we're unfortunately going to have to leave them. There are a couple other vehicles in the area that want to come have a look at these beautiful cheetah, and we've already had quite a special sighting with them, so we're going to leave them and see what else we can find.
Well, from my topic to this beautiful sight that I have here of a fast-moving herd of elephants. Look at the protection they have. In front is a matriarch, and at the back is another old female. Look at that beautiful sight. All the little ones have been put in the middle for security, assurance, and protection. They are rubbing amongst, Warren, what is the difference between a horn and a tusk? Well, a tusk, it's a growth from the jaw, very much like teeth grow. That is how a tusk is formed, whereas a horn is a bone that grows off the skull, but around it, it's got compressed hairs that form a layer on top of it, making it black, and so it is made up of small compressed hairs. That is a horn, whereas a tusk is very much like it's ivory, but it grows very much like how a tooth grows, because it's part of the elephant tooth, and that is the difference, Warren. Horns are made of keratin, and this is a protrusion. It's a bone. It's an extra teeth that is prolonged or, exaggerated in size. I think it's an evolution they've had so that they could survive in these open plains, debarking, digging, and also fighting. So it is a modified tooth that has become very, very long. Warren, that is a beautiful sight. Look at that. They're heading out on into the trees. Maybe there is something, there is a delicacy. It's like going to Chinese or Mexican some days in the week. For them, this is very much the same. And definitely there is somebody giving the bell to do that. I would say there is about 2 herds that have come together, because herds range from about 1 to 15, 12 is very common, but sometimes you find 2 herds that have come together to form one huge herd. When they are walking like that, definitely there is communication. We cannot hear it, but elephants have got low frequencies, you know that. I've said that almost every day, and with that they are able to know that we need to move from this area to another. That is a very beautiful sight. I'll leave you with it while we take you to a different location.
From the elephants back to our hippos, and it seems like they are so much enjoying this water because of how it's rising. And they like it because it washes away the hippo dung, because when the water is not as strong flowing, then there's lots of dung, and sometimes can be a little bit uncomfortable for the hippos. But I can see now some of them are swinging while rolling and twisting and turning in the water. You can see youngsters playing, and some of them have actually left the water. Helmut, thank you so much for your question. Yes, crocodiles will bother hippos. especially the young ones. So what happens, the mothers or the adult hippos will always keep the crocodiles away. So it's always very, very important to note that these two species, they don't always coexist together, because hippos are herbivores while crocodiles are carnivores. So the young ones can fall prey to the croc. So, but when they are in big numbers like that, the crocodile always keep away, because they can fall victim to death by those hippos. There's lots of activity going around there, because some of them are actually pushing each other, yawning, which is a typical activity when you see them in the evening. They keep on yawning. You can see one actually on the riverbed. On the bank, they are wanting to maybe walk out. It's interesting because they're actually feeding on the grasses on the bank there. That's a big yawn. Wow. So slowly they'll begin walking out of the river to go and feed. In the waters, hippos are very much territorial, but when they're out of land, they are not territorial. They'll be grazing, and they mix up with other hippos from a different family. But the big bulls always dominate them. Wow, that's a big splash. Whenever I come here, I always find that family there. So it seems like a suitable place for them to sit. I'm still going to watch these hippos here as they enjoy this fresh water as I take you over to another live location.
Welcome back. This little tortoise is just starting to make its way out of its humble abode. It looks like it's almost not... It's tapping. It's hitting the shell on the member that was on its right-hand side. How's that? So this is a very special thing to see. It's the first time in my career I've seen a tortoise come out. Graham, this is a Kalahari tent tortoise. One of two species of tortoise that we have on Tswalu. It's this species, which is very small. And then a larger species referred to as a leopard tortoise, which is the largest tortoise that we have in South Africa. This is a very small species, only weighing a couple of 100 grams. The smallest in South Africa would be a tortoise called a speckled padloper, but we don't have them in this region. This is the smallest tortoise that we would have over here, and really amazing to find them. You don't really see them a lot. They're just their size, large predatory birds can pick them up, fly to the rocky sections. Oh, there's the second one moving now. It's almost like he was waking his friend up, saying, hey, it's time to get up. So there's been no movement from the tortoise on the right-hand side. That's the first bit of movement we've had. And the one on the right-hand side is also larger than the one on the left. It's moving. Wow. This is incredible. Oh, these little tortoises would only lay 1 or 2 eggs. That is incredible 1 to 2 eggs. So you think about the survival rates. First and foremost, the little egg surviving to where it can hatch, being incubated at the right temperature. With reptiles, especially tortoises, the incubation temperature is very important to determine the sex. And that's unfortunately a huge problem that global warming, how it impacts these reptiles. So the sex within the chamber will be determined by the heat. So females will be produced at a higher temperature, high in the clutch, and males will be produced on the lower temperature scheme of things. Same with things like the Nile crocodile that you guys have been seeing there in East Africa with Isaac and them. Their nest and their sex ratio is also determined by the temperature within inside the chamber. But 1 or 2 eggs are laid by the female late summer, and think about now the chance of one of those little eggs hatching, surviving its egg phase, hatching as a juvenile, and then surviving to adulthood, and then successfully finding a mate to mate, and then lay another 1 or 2 eggs. It's mind-boggling stuff, how these little things survive. So I've seen crows. Crows obviously are very clever birds. I've documented crows in the Eastern Cape picking up small tortoises like this size, flying up with them to a rocky section and dropping them to where the carapace or the shell breaks. Obviously the shell is a very strong structure. It's made via the fused sections of the ribs. The spine runs up on the top end of the shell. It's a remarkable reptile. But it's a very strong, very hardy substance. Something like this, a brown hyena would be able to have the power strong enough to break through that hard outer shell. You like how old can these tortoises get? You like, so with reptiles, with their, oh my word, look at this. With reptiles, obviously they have a slower growth rate because they would go through a state of suspension through the winter periods, and then summer becoming active. So reptiles generally have a long-ish lifespan. A tortoise of this size, I really would be lying to you if I told you, but I would put a small species like this anywhere between maybe 10 years, 15 years, and I would have to get back onto you with that, just to make sure that I've got my information right, but I'm really not sure on the exact lifespan of these tiny little reptiles. But if I had to give it a ballpark figure, 5-10 years maybe even a little bit longer, because they obviously do have that amazing ability by slowing down their metabolic activity while through the winter periods, and then becoming active and then feeding, growing through summer, and then going dormant again in winter. It's a remarkable adaptation to allow reptiles to survive through different habitats of the world. I mean, these guys, the species, the grouping chelonians, this species emerged about 210 million years ago. It's a very old reptile group, and the body plan has remained unchanged for a very long time because of how adaptable these animals are to a wide range of habitats.
Well, I had to leave my elephants because I'm still looking for Bahati, and this is a perfect time to try and find her. The last time we saw her, the mother and Bahati was in front of me. You cannot see that, but I'm pointing out towards the trees, and I'm hoping I can find her coming out. It's a perfect time. I believe he's still alive, but we haven't seen Tingana since that standoff that lasted almost 36 hours when he was trying to get Bahati up here. So I believe he's alive. She was seen getting into that bush by the research guys, and so this is a perfect time to go there. The temperature has dropped quite a lot, and it's so pleasant. It is not cold. I would say it's around maybe 23. It's not cold, still perfect. I still haven't worn my jacket, and it's that time that the cats come out to start finding something to go for. I mean, that area and I'm hoping that she will come out. This kind of terrain where we are, it's called open savanna, and these are habitats good for fast cats like cheetah, but with a high density of hyenas and lions, it is not very good for them to be here for very long. So we normally have them, but they go through quite quickly. The number of hyenas is very high, and also lions is very, very high. The competition, pushes them away because those predators can actually kill them most of the time and also kill their young. And nature knows how to balance that, and so we don't find them. But it's perfect for lions, this kind of habitat, and that's why they do really, really well. The area I am in, we know this area as Sheni, and for years it has been known for an area that lions and leopards come to give birth, and I cannot blame Bahati's mother to have brought Bahati here because it's a very good area. Well, I'm going to take you to a different location while I start my search of Bahati and her mom.
Welcome back. So we've had a little more movement on the larger individual on the right-hand side, and it really looks like the smaller individual's trying to wake up and nudge the larger right-hand individual. This is all new for me over here. I think he's got other things on his mind. So by looking at the tummy section of a tortoise, the underside, the ventral side, yeah, there's definitely So the smaller one is definitely a male. There's no doubt about that now. And you can see the lady just putting heels down, trying to get away from this little male. Oh my word, that was incredible. So looking at the underside, the ventral side of tortoises, it's very easy to identify. Oh my gosh, they're gonna mate. So I'm just keeping the noise just to a minimum, folks, just so that we don't disturb them here, because this is something quite incredible and something you don't see every day. So you can see from the behavior that the smaller one is definitely a male. And you'll find that on the underside of his plastron, they call the ventral side the plastron, the belly will be concaved. That enables the male to successfully mount and then obviously mate with the female. The female's belly would be flat. She doesn't need to broach or move up onto something, so her belly would be flat. Males will be concaved. So nice nudging behavior, that's definitely male wanting to woo a lady into position. So obviously it's released pheromones, and this is why this male is very excited. It'll take a lot of energy getting up there. Almost like a little ritual, a little courtship display or behavior going on. And you can see the size of him. He is much smaller. Oh my gosh, guys. Did you get that? Just don't move, don't move. Oh my word. Obviously for sperm transfer, he needs to find the right position to successfully transfer his genetic material onto her. But this is the chance that he's got, because that's a pretty good position. You can see she is helping him out. If she didn't want to be here, she would move off. Oh my word. Oh my word. There's that nudging behavior again. Tortoises can become quite vocal when they're mating. I don't know about these smaller species, but I've actually found tortoises by the sound that the male makes during the mating process. So we could be witnessing the next 1 or 2 eggs being produced by this little female. 1 or 2 eggs, that is it. Other species lay up to 40 little ping-pong-like ball eggs, but this species only 1 or 2 eggs at that. You can actually see the male reproductive parts under that little flap, or his reproductive organ, sorry. Looks like she's playing hard to get. Girl, within nature, that's not an uncommon thing. Where females need to stay behind, either protecting eggs or protecting young, or the male just has only one function, and that is reproduction. So you find a lot of occurrences where males are much, much smaller than that of the female. So he's actually physically knocking her shell, tapping her. We can hear this tap, 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 tap. This is incredible. Alright, we're going to send you off to another amazing location, but we will be right here waiting for you guys. Oh my word. Oh my word. Oh my word.
I'd really love to see the tortoise mating. But here we have one lone hippo bull at a lily pond, and I can see a very interesting bird there, African spoonbill. Look at how that spoonbill is busy feeding. Super nice to see. So this bull, we saw him this morning as he was getting back to this lily pond, and he looked like he has a very big scratch on his back. Seems like he was ousted out from from the area that he used to be, that is along the Mara River. And normally what happens if they're kicked out, they'll walk out a long distance away from the water, from the river, and depending on where they are, and go and find a suitable place where they'll go and rest. So I think he came here. It has become his second home, and I think he'll be here for the rest of his time, because if he tries to go back again, I think he'll face retaliation. He might be fought off again. That Spoonville is super busy. So they're feeding like that. They have a reflex called the snapbill reflex. As soon as Rolf, thank you for your question. They're not very good swimmers, but at least if they submerge deep into the water, what they do, they use the buoyancy level, where they always go up and down using that buoyancy. So they're not very much of very good swimmers as opposed to the crocodiles. But I've seen hippos going down in very deep waters, and they always end up coming up. So I would say not that much, but at least they can swim. You can see the grey heron timing perfectly. I think there's some fishes there, so that's why he's just staring at the water as the spoonbill is busy feeding. They have a reflex on their bill, which is called the snap bill reflex, where it snaps shut as soon as the tip of the bill gets hold of something. And that's the reason why you can see him going back and forth. Look at the distance it's just covered from where the hippo is. You can see that lily pond is not very deep, so actually that hippo is actually bending or standing there. So that is another good advantage when the water levels are high in the river. So this guy here is much comfortable because these ponds never get as torrent as the river, where we just seen what's happening. The sun is almost setting, so I'm sure he's going to walk out of here just about now, or maybe later, maybe 20 to 10 minutes. I'm going to take you over to another live location.
Well, from the hippos to a beautiful sunset. There is no giraffe there or elephant to make it more elaborate, but that is the kind of sky that I have right here in the Masai Mara this time and hour. It's just so beautiful. So I'll let you enjoy it and let it sink in a little bit. So maybe a minute of silence and enjoy it. Well, it's so quiet and eerie sometimes, because it's so quiet. There's nothing apart from the cricket, the cicadas, and birds. There is nothing else I hear. But it's super beautiful. Yeah, the sun has said goodbye behind the Olololo Syria escarpment somewhere down there. Definitely that is west. We normally, see it, for the last few minutes towards 6:30. And after that, you have to go to the top of escarpment to see it because it's a little bit high, especially if you're too close to the escarpment. Over where I am, it's another very open plain, as you can see, a perfect area for cats. And I'm going back towards where Olalashe was seen, and also the lone lioness that was by the rocks earlier on. I'm going to see what they're doing. Hopefully, maybe the rest have come up, and maybe they're by that rock, maybe that area. If that's the area, in front of me, that's where I'm heading, and that's what I'm gonna do. So come with me. Let's go find out what's happening. It's that time of day where those predators would be on the road walking. It's starting to be difficult for these cats because now the migration has gone towards the border, and now they have to struggle a little bit more. This is the time they go for warthogs. They have to be up early, and they have to be prepared to walk long distances in search of something, and it can be very difficult.
Welcome back, welcome back. This is pretty amazing. This is the first time for me ever seeing Kalahari tent tortoises coming or emerging out of their burrow system, but now a male actively pursuing and trying to successfully mate with this larger female. She has given him a few good chances. He is just, unfortunately, seems like a little unskilled in this department, but persistence with reptiles does pay off. Moving up and down, she does stand still for quite a while, and he just can't get in the position. David's just going to get us into a better position here. Obviously, we're just watching our distance, watching our movements, moving very slowly. We're also downwind from them, just so that we don't disturb this amazing scene that we have going on. Cherry, so my experience on Tswalu, I've only seen individuals. I've never seen two together, and this would have to be a little more in-depth homework for me to understand their courtship, and as well as I think Tswalu, I think we have touchdown. They don't normally travel in pairs. You would normally find tortoises in general behaving by themselves, but the smell that her body's producing now is definitely attractive notice that he doesn't want to let her go. But interestingly, we found them together, and if you think about how small this animal is and how far it has to move to find a mate, I don't know if that at the end of the hot season, so the end of last summer, they found each other, they went to bed, so that it's a little more efficient and you increase your chances of reproducing, but then also successfully passing on your genetic material, which sounds very interesting. So all new behavior for me, and something that I'm now witnessing for the first time, which is incredible. That's the fantastic thing about being out here. It's the first time. Every day we come out here, we never know what we're going to find. We were looking at a grevia, and David stumbled upon this little beautiful patterned individual, and this is what we've been blessed with. We're just going to move up very slowly. You can see David moving very slowly, being very respectful for us, which is number one. Respect is number one, no matter what. So normally seeing single, but I'm sure that the behavior of finding a partner and linking up is an efficient system. Kerry, that's something I'm going to have to find out with my little bit of research on these individuals, is that I'm sure that if you go to bed with a partner, you know, you've got what you need, so to say. So having a partner going to bed and getting that out the way and done with is obviously the most important thing. If you look at things that drive animals, there's nothing that drives animals more than feeding and reproducing. So having a strategy in order to reproduce is a very important thing, and I'm sure that this will be part of these smaller individuals' breeding strategies, finding a mate, potentially going to bed with them, and waiting out the unfavorable periods, and then once the summer approaches, you have your mating partner. You mate and you go off and do your thing. But that's something, Kerry, I'm just going to have to do a little bit more research, a little bit more homework, so that I know exactly the information I'm giving across is relevant and as well as correct. I thrive on correct information. That's what drives me. I don't like making mistakes, but in general, I would say, why not? Why isn't it a nice thing going to bed with a partner, and when you wake up, you've got that partner there? It's great. And they're so small. Think about these little animals trying to find each other. Obviously, pheromones, the scent particles that a female would deposit, is a very efficient way of locating that female. It would be like a breadcrumb trail for him to find her. And then obviously you got, the added extra. You've obviously got competitors to think about. So the pheromone trail can be picked up by multiple males, where obviously competition is a very important thing. The strongest male obviously reproducing. But these two were in that little burrow together. And I would have to really look into it to see if that's what they do. I don't even know if it's been recorded yet. And then them going, finding a burrow together, going to sleep together, and then emerging, mating, and then continuing on the summer activities. The summer activities. Still lots of that knocking behavior. This is incredible. All right, we're going to send you to another one of our amazing locations, and we'll be here for you guys when you get back.
Well, I'm looking for Olalashe, and this is the area where I left him earlier, and now he's not here, he's further up, but I'm gonna go there. But I just wanted to share this beautiful man-made pod over here. And recently we've been having crocodiles come, sorry, not crocodiles, but hippos come and investigate. So it means they are checking it out, and sooner or later we're going to have some hippos maybe. These ones are made when dirt is dug to, help make our roads better, the infrastructure, and instead of leaving a hole, they normally make them, they make a wall on the inside so that it traps water, and also it does attract animals. So it works both ways, helps in the construction of roads, and then we have our watering holes for the animals. You can hear the frogs here every now and then. Those are rocket frogs. They are called rocket frogs because they have a very pointy nose like a rocket. And when spooked, they have very strong hind legs. They accelerate themselves, and they actually can be very spooky because they dash out very, very quickly, and they normally can't start moving from this hour onwards in the dark. Enjoy that silence for a little bit as we take you to a different location.
You're back with us at Ambion Pinda, and Gert and I have come out into a vast open floodplain grassland with lots of short green grass, lots of wildebeest, lots of zebra, and just the most unbelievable scene. Look at the clouds rolling in across the landscape and those curtains of beautiful light falling between them. Look at that. That's just surreal. The wind is still howling from the southwest, causing those clouds to kind of march over the tops of our heads above this grassland. All the wildebeest, all the zebra are busy feeding. Look at how lush and green the grass is. There was quite a big fire that came through here a few months ago, and the rain that we got a couple of weeks ago has resulted in all of the new grasses sprouting through, super lush and super green. Perfect food for all of these wildebeest and zebra. We had come here in search of some white rhinos, but unfortunately with the very cold wind, it seems like all of them have moved off of the grassland to take shelter in the bush. And so I think we're going to move out of this area, and I'm going to go see what else I can find.
And just look at that. This must be the smallest baby blackback jackal I have seen in the wild. Look how full the belly is. And just look at those large ears turning in all directions. Beautiful late afternoon sun on it, the hole right next to it. That's its den. And I've been lucky enough to see this baby jackal in the same spot for the past 2 weeks now. Actually seen it grow a little bit. Doesn't stray far from this hole. Any little bug, anything nearby that comes past, it'll grab. Now, we saw the parents around here earlier as well, so we know that both of them are here. But they usually lay a little bit further off, away from here. You see that little... You can see I heard some antelopes calling, and those ears immediately went that way. So the wind's just picked up quite a bit here, and because of that you can see he's staring around quite a lot. Just have a look at him. But he's got his nose up in the air. And you'll notice what he tends to do is he picks up his nose in one direction, and then his ears is facing the other direction. Monique, or Lonique, he is not alone. He's alone as a young pup, which is actually quite odd for blackback jackals. They normally, well, I guess they can have anything up to about 6 or 8 pups. But mostly the ones I've seen around here, they usually have 2 or 3. And in this case, it's only this one. And we were just lucky enough to determine that this is indeed a male. But no, he's certainly not alone here. His parents are here. A little yawn. They are resting on one of the nearby game paths, and in the direction that his right ear is facing. That's where they are. And they're constantly keeping an eye on him. I think we're going to wait here for now to see if something comes past and maybe draws his attention.
Welcome back on Tswalu Kalahari. This male still trying to successfully mate with this female Kalahari tent tortoise. Unbelievable. There's few things that you ever think you're going to see, and mating tortoises definitely something that you don't think about you're going to see on that day, and especially Kalahari tent tortoises at that. So we've been watching the behavior of the female, and the female is keeping the rear end very low to the ground, making it very hard for the male to successfully sassy. So is the tortoise shell unique to individuals? I think that was the question. Sorry, there was a bit of a breakup. So the pattern would be the same through the species, but the characteristics on the shell, little nicks, pieces of the plate missing, tears, marks, that is unique to the individual itself. But the pattern you would find fairly similar throughout the family itself. There will be slight variations, so the pattern could be unique to each individual, but I mean slight variations that you'd really need to document. You're not just picking it up with your naked eye. A lot of that nudging behavior going on. And David made a comment, he's got to be so tired already. This is remarkable. So you can see on her carapace, that's what we call the top part of the shell, the carapace. You can see those beautiful radiating lines. We're going to send you off, we'll see you shortly. Welcome back to Ambion Pinda. We've had some success in terms of our search for some white rhinos. Look at that. 2 of them busy crossing this open grassland with some very fat zebra and we're right on the far southern end of this grassland where there's a bit of a rise. See behind the rhinos there's a bit of thick bush, and I think that might just be adding or functioning as a bit of a windbreak. So maybe not too windy where those rhinos are. Allowing them to come out and feed on the grass there. Have a look at all the zebra that are with them there as well. There's some wildebeest there too. So obviously a really good patch of grazing. See how the rhinos are walking straight there. They're not feeding as they go. Their noses to the ground, busy smelling, looking for, trying to find the best grass. Having a look through my binoculars, it looks like the grass is a little bit longer there. Hasn't yet been as grazed or grazed as heavily as the grass in the foreground. See how short the grass is where these zebra are close to us? It's already been fed on extensively by things like wildebeest and zebra, and of course the rhinos as well. And Gerrit and I are going to spend a bit of time here watching these rhinos to see what happens.
Just like Damon spending a bit of time with those white rhinos, we've been spending a bit of time with this little jackal. You can see he's almost swaying in the wind. And like I said earlier, I've never seen one this young before. You can see the grey and the black on the tail coming out. And then on the back, it's not even completely developed yet. And it looks like the hair on a man's arm. So it's just starting out. And since the first time I've seen him, it's gone a little bit darker. And you can see every little thing, anything crawling nearby is giving it a fright. Because this wind is really picking up now. That's why he's constantly staring around. You can see he wants to dip his head and fall asleep, but just as he dipped his head, the sun dipped down below the clouds, and it looks like he got a little bit of a second wind again. I don't know if our viewers can see it clearly, but near him every now and again there's a spider hunting wasp coming past. Firebird, when do jackal pups leave their families? Oh, I know that there are cases along the western coast of Namibia where they tend to stick around and they actually form packs, which is something that is quite unheard of in black-backed jackals. Exactly when they leave the parents, I think that is something that depends on the little jackal itself. It also depends on when what time of the year they get born. I don't have any specific time as to when they start leaving the parents and forage on their own. That's something we might be able to see with this one.
Well, this is still going on, the nice tortoise love. This male still trying to successfully mate here. Female making a little hard. But in this instance, I think persistence is definitely key for animals such as these. It's really remarkable to see the behavior, because for me this is a first. Just like we witnessed with those beautiful monitor lizards, and it happens from taking the time to slow down, look at the small things, appreciate. And this is when you have incredible moments like this. For me as a guide in my career, this for me is learning. This is textbook learning for me. I would never forget what I've seen and heard here today. So he's actually got to go in from the side. You can see that the way that her shell is designed, he has to get in from the side of that middle plate to successfully find where he's looking for. More nudging. So trying to indicate to her, listen, now is the time. See the beautiful scales in the forearms? Those are protective scales. Obviously the animal walking through the brush. Those big scales in the forearms are there to protect the animal's legs while moving. Also for the male now it's used as grip. You can see how he's pushing against the shell of the female. We're going to send you off to another location. We'll see you shortly.
We've managed to get a little bit closer to one of these white rhinos, everybody. Have a look at him standing there. See how his head is up? His ears are pricked forward. He's looking towards us. He can hear us, but because the wind is blowing quite strongly from him to us, he can't smell us. Having a look at this massive white rhino bull, look at the size of his ears and the size of his nostrils in comparison to the size of his eyes. Very small eyes compared to his ears and his nostrils, so very easy to see which of his senses are most important to him. And now because we're sitting still, he can hear us, he can probably just see the shape of the vehicle, but he can't smell us, so he's not able to really get a proper idea as to what we are and what we're doing. Maybe why he was so alert and looking towards us like that. But I think now he's satisfied that we're no threat to him. See how his head is slowly lowering back towards the ground as he relaxes. And some zebra in the background behind him. Some impala too that have all come out to feed on this lush floodplain grassland. Still a little bit inquisitive about us. Look at how he's kind of circling around, trying to get a better view. And it'll be interesting to see if he goes all the way around the back to try and get downwind of us. Yogestra, you're asking if rhinos will fight with zebras or wildebeest. Yogestra, no, they won't. All of these herbivores, because there's so much grass to go around, they'll coexist pretty peacefully and they'll get along quite well, all of them feeding on the grass in their own little patches. Where food is short, or maybe where water is short, then perhaps there might be some conflict. But I mean, because a rhino is so big, just its size alone will normally be enough to drive away any other herbivores in a confined space. Oh, the impalas are running there. I wonder what they've just some young rams, maybe just being quite energetic in the cool of the evening. But their little burst of movement has caused a bit of panic there. The zebra and the wildebeest have all lifted their heads and are all staring at them. So, Yogestra, maybe if the resources like food or water are in short supply, and a rhino is busy drinking water or busy feeding on a restricted patch of food, and another herbivore tries to come in as well, then the rhino might behave aggressively towards it. I've seen a video. It was in a zoo where there were rhinos and warthogs being kept in the same pen, and there was a big bale of lucerne that had been put down, and the rhino was about to start feeding on the lucerne, or had just started feeding, and a warthog came and tried to join in, and the rhino, which hadn't been dehorned like this one, actually used its horn to kind of skewer the warthog and flick it up into the air in a very quick movement. It was quite terrifying to watch how fast that rhino moved. And I don't mean to sound insensitive, but it took a long time for that warthog to land again. So it was very high and very hard that rhino threw the warthog, and the warthog landed, for all intents and purposes, dead when it hit the ground. But that's not the usual. Like we said, I mean, look at how there's so many herbivores all out here together on this plain, and they're all feeding together, kind of ignoring each other, each feeding on its own little patch of grass that it's got there. What a beautiful scene. Cockby Staff, you're asking if I've ever gotten too close to a rhino. Once or twice, but not on purpose. It was where I didn't realize that the rhino was there and came around a corner, and suddenly the rhino was standing right up against the side of the road, and had to slam on brakes and swerve to avoid the rhino. We weren't going too fast, but the bush was just so thick, and it was standing very still at the time, and I had no idea that it was there. We've also had it once or twice where rhinos have approached the vehicle just out of inquisitiveness, coming to smell what we are, trying to understand or get a better idea of what we are, but not coming too close, stopping maybe about 5 or 10 meters from us just to smell and then moving off. because of how big they are, they're very confident, and so don't normally behave aggressively towards vehicles, as long as we are respectful of their space. I'm going to keep quiet for a bit, everybody, because I can actually hear him cropping up the grass with his lips. Let's see if we can hear. I don't know if any of you were able to hear that. He's a little bit far away from us now, and so... Oh. Sorry about that, everybody. We are, of course, in contact with Final Control using cell phones, and so our call just dropped there. Apologies. But yeah, so I think he's just a little bit too far away from us for now to be able to hear that feeding. I don't know if any of you were able to hear those couple of lip smacks as he used those big fleshy lips of his to pluck up the grass from the ground. But I think now he's a bit more relaxed, satisfied his curiosity with us, and he's going to keep on grazing in the direction of the other white rhinos, and I think also in the direction of where those zebra were. So Gert and I are going to leave this white rhino and all of these zebra and wildebeest to continue feeding into the evening, and we're going to start to make our way slowly back in the direction of the lodge, see what else we can find for you on the way home.
Well, we're in a similar boat. We've unfortunately had to leave Tingana, not because we wanted to, but because the sneaky sausage has got his kill right in camp where it's inaccessible. We eventually found where it was. We couldn't find him, but I found the kill. It's in a tambuti tree. It looks like either an old nyala or bushbuck. There's not very much of it left, but it is in an inaccessible area, and so, well, it's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. He's, I'm afraid, found himself a little spot where he can have some peace and quiet, which is fair enough, while he enjoys his meal. So now I've just kind of come around towards Gowrie Dam. I wanted to see if maybe, just maybe, I can pick up any sign of Kalamba or whichever leopard has been calling so much over the last little bit. Ooh. Lion cat, that's a very, 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 very tricky question. There's too many to really kind of narrow it down to one in terms of my favorite wildlife sighting. I've been fortunate, and I've been able to travel to some amazing places, seen some incredible things, and each kind of thing has its own unique sort of experience around it, and I wouldn't give up any of them if I'm honest with you. And so there are more memorable sightings than others, but there's too many to narrow it down to one. And again, this question comes up a lot when you're a guide as to what's your favorite sighting, what's the best sighting you've ever had. Well, it really depends on what we're talking about, because, you know, there's sightings that mean something because they are cute. There's some sightings that mean something because of high action. There's sightings that mean something to me that might not mean anything to anybody else. So if I say to you, my best ever sighting was, you know, maybe something like a golden pipit or a pangolin, you know, so most people would be like, oh, well, that's not very exciting, but maybe to me that means a lot because of a set of circumstances. So I don't have one singular sighting that is just like, that is my best sighting. Constantly being given amazing sightings and have been lucky enough to see amazing things, and so all of them really, and every single time and day that I've spent in the bush has contributed to the overall experience being my favorite. So there we go. That's my answer to that question.
I could agree with Tristan that stipulating your favorite sighting or your favorite encounter is such a hard thing for a naturalist, because there's just so many beautiful little moments that where nature just unravels and unfolds in front of you, which is remarkable. Things have slowed down here a bit. The female's found a little spot. She is now hunkered down, and there's been no movement for the past 2-3 minutes. So you asked a brilliant question on the age of these tortoises. I'm just obviously now thinking about it and just trying to analyze. Little tortoises like this, I would put anywhere between 20, 30, maybe even 40 years of age. Tortoises are very long-lived animals. Like as with most reptiles, they have a fairly lengthy lifespan. Slow metabolic rate, obviously, when going into a state of suspension. And then having that beautiful protective armor, which would be the shell around the body, which protects the animal itself. So in South Africa, we have 3 different terminologies for these shielded reptiles. In some places around the world, they're just known as tortoises. But here in South Africa, we have 3 different groups of these shelled reptiles. One would be tortoise, just like you're looking at now, where the head is drawn straight back into the shell. Obviously, a remarkable ability to keep the animal safe from a predator. Then we've got freshwater species, which are referred to as terrapins. Their head cannot be pulled back into the shell, but is pulled either to the left or the right of the shell in case of a threat. And then turtles, which are ocean-based, are not able to pull their head into the shell. So let me just go over that again. So tortoises pull their head straight back in the shell. Terrapins, freshwater, either left or right of the shell. And then turtles, which are ocean-based, are not able to pull their head back in the shell. So on that behavior, that's how we categorize and class these 3 beautiful groups of reptiles within South Africa. David, how small the male is, he's about a little bit smaller than my fist. I mean, he is not big at all. She's maybe about 40-30% larger than he is. And we can see now that how they're walking, you can see the underbelly. There's this beautiful concave section on the underbelly, which obviously allows him to successfully mount a female. Running after her. So there could be multiple things going on here. She could just not be ready to be mated with right now. He could not be a male that's fit enough. Dave is just going to get us in a better position. Just hold on. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Live and interactive, sorry about that. The sand's really slippery and trying to pull somebody up there around the other side. Okay, come this way. Okay, there they are. So the female's found another little spot. She's gone down again. It's just remained now motionless, and they can see the male just coming up behind her. So this could go on for a couple of hours, could go on for a day or 2. And just the sheer chance of these little animals finding each other, I really think that behavior is a very efficient form of behavior. Barbara, to successfully fertilize the eggs, 1 mating occurrence needs to happen. You can have males mating with a female multiple times. Then you obviously have a change of genetic information. But with these guys, 1 mating will be enough, where she would have enough sperm to fertilize the eggs. She'll then go off, find a little hole, dig a little hole, and then deposit 1 or 2 little eggs. And that's it. That's remarkable.
Well, it sounds like there's a few little technical issues, which is par for the course out in the African wilderness. It still amazes me every day that we're able to send these signals from the middle of nowhere. Now, unfortunately, we haven't had any luck. I've been trying to actually find any signs of this leopard that was calling so much, like I say, last night, but no tracks to work with. I wasn't out this morning, so it's always a little bit more tricky when you weren't out in the morning, because you don't know where guys have driven and you don't know where tracks were seen. Sorry, I'm just backing up because I thought I saw an interesting track, and I did see an interesting track, or an interesting one for here anyway. So I'm just going to go to the right here. Down on the ground here, we got tracks for an animal that, well, we never really get on camera, unfortunately. These guys here are very, very nocturnal, and we don't see much of them at all. But if I point out this area here, what you've got is you've got a kind of sort of back area here, and then you've got 1, 2, 3 toes with big claws in the front, and then a claw over there. So this is for a aardvark. Now, there's an aardvark that lives in this area because every single morning that I come here, in this particular section, we find the tracks for this aardvark. The problem is in this particular area is that we are not out late enough, particularly now when it's so hot. These guys come out in the middle of the night and they kind of move around and do their thing. So they're around, it's just because they get no exposure to vehicles, they end up to being incredibly shy, and so we very, 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 very seldom pick them up. You need to be out sort of midnight for these guys, and also then get very, very lucky. The terrain here is so dense and so thick that we don't really have much of a chance when it comes to actually being able to see them. We kind of, unfortunately, if they run across the road here, you're not going to really find them. So there's no real point in looking too hard for them in the day. Sinak, you're asking about an old friend in the form of Hosanna. A lot of you might know who he is, a lot of you might have heard of him, and some of you might have no idea who Hosanna is. Hosanna is a male leopard that comes from the Karula lineage, so the same lineage as Thandi Tlalamba, and actually from Tingana too, the male leopard we had earlier. And he distributed away from this part of the world in 2019, early 2019. He was an incredible leopard. He still is an incredible leopard, and he kind of captured the hearts of so many different people. So the answer to it is yes. The updates are that he is still in the area that he's been frequenting for the last year, which is an area called Ottawa. He is seen fairly regularly by the guides from Singita who traverse there. Every now and then pops over to Elephant Plains, although those visits are becoming far more infrequent due to the fact that tortoise pan has been around there so much of late, and so we don't hear as much of Tingana crossing that area. But he's doing fine. He's, up and about and kind of keeping well, which is always good to hear. All right, we're going to try to see if we can find a leopard of our own. It would be lovely if it was Hosanna, but that would be a very long stretch.
Hopefully it is Hosanna for you there, Tristan. Welcome back to Tswalu Kalahari. This little love couple, I can't say love birds, this little love couple has found a nice little bird. The female's tucked herself in, and the male's right behind her, obviously safeguarding her, because this is an opportunity where a male would sneak up here and actually dominate him and could displace him. But what we're going to look at quickly while we are waiting here is this great set of tracks that's really fresh, so warm that I could actually crack an egg and fry it. And I'm just joking, I'm talking nonsense. But this is the beautiful tracks of that mating pair of Kalahari 10 tortoises. And how we IDing tortoise tracks is that it's fairly easy. If you think about the animal's body, if that's the shell, if we're looking from above, if that's the shell there, the legs can't move out of that position. And so basically what you're having is you're having this train track footprints being put down. So when it comes to tortoises, it's very easy to recognize their track set from how even the feet have been put down, of how they are situated alongside the actual carapace. The carapace is the top side, and the plastron will be the underside of this tortoise's shell. Remarkable creatures. If you think about how they are adapted to these environments, it's incredible. So if I take a tortoise and I just draw the side, so if this is the side of a tortoise, you'll find that its ribs and its spine, so there would be his head, like that would be his leg and his leg. His spine will actually run up on the top of this shell. It's fused to the actual shell. That'll be the spine, and the part that makes up the ribs is actually fused pieces that makes the shell. And obviously adaptations to survive these hot and dry regions, it would be things like, how do they get away and around from water? Finding water out here is a very, very difficult task. So when you find it, you want to store it. And they are able to store water in a specialized anal sac called a bursa, whereas they can accumulate a lot of material, a lot of moisture. They can store it, and then when they need it, they can use it. But also when they're threatened, they can disperse this stored water. So it's very important, if you find a beautiful tortoise, is to appreciate it from a safe distance. Because if you pick up this animal and it feels threatened, it'll unfortunately disperse. It'll release all this water. Not only is it dangerous for the animal, but you could also be potentially eliminating further breeding, because in areas where the sediment isn't so soft like this over here, the female will actually use the water to soften the soil. She will then use her hind legs to open up a chamber where she'll then deposit the eggs, cover it. And I've seen this. They are so sneaky. She'll go off and she'll take pieces and she'll cover this section so it makes it look natural. I've physically seen that with leopard tortoises. They're on the move. They're on the move. Our honeymoon couple is on the move. And she's legging it. Alright, we're going to send you off to another incredible location. We'll be here for you guys. See you shortly.
Well, we have found something that is a lot bigger than a tortoise, in the form of a giraffe, but equally, I suppose, beautiful in terms of its patterning, from the tortoise's shell to the giraffe's coat. We were hoping very much to line up our giraffe head with the full moon behind it, but the moon is a little too high, unfortunately. It would have been really cool if we could have silhouetted its head against the moon. Also, the giraffe, went behind the bush and has now completely obscured its whole head. So that didn't really work out. But it's a beautiful, beautiful big male giraffe. Dark, dark coat. He's really in magnificent condition at this stage of his life, and he should be, given that we've just come off the flowering season of the knobthorns, which is what he's tucking into right now. And then, subsequent to that, we had really good rains, which has meant that all of these trees that have thorns on them have all sprouted new, beautiful green leaves, and that is perfect for a giraffe to be able to eat and to be able to kind of fill one's stomach, I suppose. Well, no, they don't sleep underneath trees that often. I mean, giraffe are not animals that sleep a huge amount in general. But when it's hot, what you will find with giraffe is that they go under a tree. So they might not be sleeping, but they will just stand under there for a little bit or feed under a tree and just use the shelter of that shade to just keep out of the sun a little bit. Every animal out here it has a constant struggle to cope with the heat that comes through during our summer months. It's very uncomfortable for all of these creatures, but they're all able to do what they need to do in order to survive. And like I say, giraffe will just find a shady spot and they just go and sit under it. In terms of their sleep, if they do sleep, generally they'll actually sit down under a tree, and they kind of fold their legs and they sit with their neck straight up, and they'll have a little nap. But most giraffe are only sleeping about 20 minutes in a 24-hour period. It's not a very long sleep that they take. So it's just short breaks here and there. But the ruminating process, when they're sitting under a tree during a hot day and then just standing there, that ruminating process is akin to kind of meditating in some ways, and it's part of their kind of relaxation that they take and kind of good for their body. And so, they do fine. They don't have to worry too much. But the thing about a giraffe is that it can't really be asleep for long periods of time, and even when it's sitting and properly asleep, it's very vulnerable at that point. So most of the time they're just standing up, and they kind of just use the shade to get out of the heat more than a place to sleep. You can see how this giraffe is feeding into the wind at the moment, which is very, very clever of it. And I'll tell you why now. Now, I think it's Don's sisters. I don't know. I didn't quite get it. But you're asking if there's animals that hunt giraffe? Yes, there are many animals that hunt giraffe. Lions, hyenas, leopard. Wild dogs I've seen wild dogs chasing young giraffe. I've never seen them actually catch one and eat one, but I've seen them chasing it. But leopard, hyena, and lions are the three big ones that kill giraffes. So a lot of them do. But now what I was saying about them feeding into the wind is that most of the acacias, particularly knobthorns, are able to release a pheromone in the air, which is carried by the wind and is caught by other acacias, or knobthorns in this case, and that signals to the trees that they're under attack and they must produce tannins. So what the giraffe is doing right now is it's feeding into the wind so that those pheromones are not being carried to the trees, and that it's able to actually feed on them without the tannins being too high when it gets there. Otherwise, you'll find that if they feed with the wind, they often get to the point where the tree is already very, very tanninous, and it's not really kind of useful for them. There's a fairly stiff wind blowing into that giraffe's face at the moment, so it's the perfect way for it to feed. And we saw it going from left to right, which is the opposite of the wind direction. So very clever male giraffe, that's for sure. Peaceful, though, watching this giraffe, that's for sure. All right, so we're going to carry on. I'm going to try and just quickly go past the pan to see if Tingana's come out for a drink. It's the right time of day for that. Hopefully we'll have a bit of luck.
Well, while Tristan does that, we've come back to join up with the mother cheetah and her two cubs as they start to settle down for the night. See, the cubs still looking a little bit restless. And when we got here, they were still a little bit playful, but I think now as the sun, or as the light of the sun disappears completely from the sky, they're going to start to lie still as they prepare for the night. I don't know if you can hear in the background, there's a red-chested cuckoo calling incessantly. Quite a few of them in the thickets around this clearing, just calling their last before the last light disappears from the sky. Ian, you're asking if I think you said grooming. If grooming makes the cheetah thirsty, I don't think so. Yeah, no, it's typically just the body's. So obviously the body needs moisture to replace lost moisture, and grooming, even though it is I suppose their tongue sticking out of their mouth, I don't think that they'll obviously try not to swallow a lot of the hair. They'll often kind of spit it out. I suppose thinking about, like, if you or I were to use our tongue to lick dry hair the whole time, that sounds like a horrible idea. But we'd obviously lose a lot of the moisture from our mouths. But I mean, it's a part of what they do, and cheetah, like other big predators, also like the leopard that Tristan's looking for, are not very water dependent, and they often get enough moisture from their own metabolism when they metabolize the food that they eat, the moisture, the blood of their prey. So I don't think it'll cause them to to particularly go out and seek water. Have a look at how the two cubs, those are them that we're looking at now, how they are looking off to the left of the screen. If we just zoom out a little bit, see where Mom is lying and how she is facing in the opposite direction. It's almost like the three cheetah are kind of watching each other's backs, keeping a 360-degree awareness about themselves as we go into the darkness. That one cub has just got up. I wonder if it didn't maybe hear something scurrying through the grass there. Maybe a little rodent. A bit of a dried out marsh that it's now going down into. Oh, and its brother looks like it can't resist. It's also looking like it's about to get up. There we go. Bit of a game that's starting. Maybe just one last little bout of play before it gets too dark. Luckily for them, Mom has found this fantastic clearing to keep them in for the night. Where it's super open and therefore relatively safe for these cheetah, like we said earlier, nice and open where they can spot danger coming from far under the light of this moon that's almost full. It'll be a super bright night tonight. But still a restless night, no doubt, for these cheetah. They'll be super vigilant. The cubs might sleep soundly with their heads down on the ground, but probably find that Mom will open her eyes and scan around every couple of minutes, like she's doing now. And I think now that the light has completely gone from the horizon, we're going to leave these cheetah, let them settle in for the night and have some peace and quiet, just so that they can stay vigilant and stay safe during the night. But what an awesome time it's been with them this afternoon.
Welcome back, and how amazing is that? What is that? Just hold on. There's a big skink here. It's like we got a reptile day going over here. Dave, you just want to stand up? There's a skink there, it's moving. See it there? It's shining. We've got a big skink here, ladies and gents. We are definitely in for the reptiles this side. I've got luck with reptiles, it seems like. I think it's David.
I was on the wrong thing.
There it is there. You can see there. Look through this gap here. On the other side of the brush. Oh, there it moves. Right behind the tortoise. So there's a beautiful skink that I was just trying to... Obviously, they're so fast and so tricky. That locking onto there, David's got it. Look at that. Unbelievable. Wow. Very fast reptile in comparison to these tortoises that we've been watching. And obviously this guy is an active predator for ants and termites. It's speed. It's a long tail. You can see how shiny it is. The movement in the sand would be almost effortless for this animal. And feeding around this small camel thorn, more than likely on ants and termites. But a beautiful sight that is. Look at that. So skinks are very easy to recognize with their slender-like body structure. You find other animals, other reptiles like agamas have very triangular heads, making them easier to recognize within this very diverse group of reptiles. There he sits, look at that. Long tail. Some skinks are so well adapted to sandy environments that they've lost all limbs, and what they refer to as legless skinks. Obviously through time, slight variations and obviously passed on genetics, those limbs have become almost null or useless to move through these sandy environments. But a very beautiful skink this is. This might be a new species for me. almost cylindrical in shape, and you can see almost uniform. It's almost got no neck entirely. Its head continues straight onto its shoulders. But this little pair of, or the little honeymoon couple have slowed down quite a lot. It looked like the female actually wanted to try and find food, but now with the sun leaving us, obviously the overcast conditions that we've got right now, these reptiles will start to slow down for the evening. Being out here and moving around at night time is obviously a tricky thing, so you've got a comfortable spot under a bush, you wanna stay there. And this is more than likely where they would stay until tomorrow morning. And this male is still being very close to this female, because if there's any competition, he has to displace competition before it displaces him. And for a male like this could be this male's everything, is to pass on his genetic material. Well, from our side, it's been absolutely fantastic having you guys with us today. And thank you very much for joining us, first and foremost. And the questions, and obviously the curiosity for all these amazing things. Also from all our colleagues, thank you very much. And FC, it's been incredible. And to the viewers, you guys are champions. Be sure to join us tomorrow for the Sunrise Safari to find some more incredible, wonderful sightings. From us, cheers for now.
It's the most incredible feeling to be here. This is live.
Live.
Wild Earth takes you on daily intimate